Welcome back to the 30-minute drill, 30-minute drill, 30-minute drill, 30-minute drill.
They're just amazing. They're so good.
So many things have gone wrong, and they've
just been a prince all throughout this entire year on the.
It's simply amazing.
Simply amazing.
Playoff time now. Everybody's serious now. There's no more joking around.
It was just terrible.
Having more experience, stepping on the game last year. I think that despite that, they'll be popping the greatest shows at the end of this year.
So turn around and I'll pick up the slack. Take 'em to the bridge. Dirty babe.
Hi and welcome to this week's edition of the 30-minute drill. I'm here with my guests Dan Cohen and Della Volpe, and today we're going to be talking about college basketball. Now guys, college basketball has usually been taken over by some very good freshmen. Who do you guys think is the best freshman this year?
I'm going to say the top freshman in the college basketball league is Greg Oden out of Ohio State. He is the best player. I think he's one of the best players in the league, not only just best freshman. I mean, he's averaging a good amount of points this year, good rebounds, he can block shots. Also, he's led his team to the #1 spot in the seeding so far.
I think, in my opinion, this is by far the best freshman class college basketball has ever seen, with guys like Brandon Wright, Greg Oden, Mr. Durant on Texas, who's a freshman, and yet probably still the best player in all of college basketball. Ty Lawson, an excellent point guard with Carolina. Chase Budinger with Arizona. I think that Durant is the best freshman in basketball. Kind of reminds me of Dirk Nowitzki, the way he can hit the three.
Now guys, on Monday night we saw a great upset by Syracuse over Georgetown. They really overpowered them on senior night. They took some of their seniors out early, and they really just dominated the game. How far do you guys think Syracuse will go in the NCAA tournament?
You know, I'm going to say they're not going to go too far. I mean, last week they did beat Georgetown in a good game. They really played well. But, I don't really see this going far into the tournament. I mean, they are, they're an underrated team, but they do have some young players, and I really don't think they're going to be able to push their way up to the top.
Syracuse is a good team when they come to play. They have guys like Andy Rounds, who we saw he can knock down the three from any place on the court if he wants to. When Devendorf puts his mind to it, he can become a great passer, but when he's not, his head's not in the game, he kind of tosses the ball with one hand and makes a lot of giveaways. So Syracuse can go far if they play well.
Now, another upset this week was UNC falling to Maryland. I mean, what do you think this will do to their team's morale since they're probably a clear-cut #1 seed? Do you think they still are?
Yeah, they were number 5 in the coaches poll, but now they're probably going to drop because Maryland, an unseeded team, beat them. And I really think DJ Strawberry really did play a great game. He really helped his team, and I'm going to say Maryland made the better move, and they're going to be a better seed in the tournament now.
This is a rough one for me since you guys know I'm a pretty big UNC fan. UNC now dropping to number 8, so that's not too comfortable for them. But they can jump back. They have games against Duke, Georgia Tech, then they have the ACC tournament. So if they win out, they can definitely get back to a #1 seed for the tournament. I just think right now Carolina, they were winning by 12, but they're winning by 12 going down the stretch with not too much time left. So they need to focus on closing out games, which they've proved they really haven't been able to do so far.
Well, there's a couple teams this year that were supposed to be top 10 teams, but have not performed up to their expectations. The teams I'm talking about are UConn and Duke. What do you think are the reasons for these teams' difficulties this season?
Well, it's not going to be coaching because, Coach K is one of the greatest coaches in college basketball. So for Duke's problem, I'm going to say it's inexperience. They got some young players. I mean, last year they lost a couple of big players in Williams and Reddick. But I'm going to say their lack of experience, with the young guards on their team, the young forwards, I think that's their major problem.
Those two teams both share the common factor of they both got killed by graduation and players leaving early. I mean, Duke, you lose J.J. Reddick, who is probably one of the best college basketball, we don't know about his pro career, but he's probably one of the best college basketball players of all time with the way that he could hit free throws and jump shots. They also lost Sheldon Williams, who was a power center, which they really lacked this year. And then UConn also lost a lot of talent in Rudy Gay and Armstrong, so all those guys. So that's really my opinion why those two teams aren't that good this year.
Now, speaking of shot blocking centers, there's been a lot of shot blocking centers this year that really performed very well this season, such as Hashim Thabit from UConn and Daryl Swatkins, or as his parents call him, Watkins from Syracuse. Who do you guys think is the best shot blocking center this year?
Well, I'm going to have to agree with you there with Watkins. I mean, he really is a great shot blocker for Syracuse. But also Greg Oden, he's turning into a very good player for Ohio State. I mean, he's averaging a couple blocks a game. I know he can also get it done on the boards and score some points.
You mentioned Asim Tabi, and I have to go with him. UConn, although UConn's not very good this year, they're still the '1 shot blocking team in America. They're averaging over 8 blocks a game, and that's really led by Asim Tabi. Also, a side note, Brandon Wright of Carolina, he's 6'10" with a 7'6" wingspan. He gets his hand on a lot of balls, a lot more than any Carolina player I've seen in recent times.
Thank you, Dan and Travis. And we'll be back with more 30-minute drill right after this. Sometimes, hosting the 30-minute drill let the fame get to their head.
Where's Dan?
I don't know, man. Ever since he got the lead anchor job, he hasn't been on time.
Starting at host, standing at 5'5", 140 pounds, the offspring of Karen and Scott, Daniel Adam Cohen.
Sometimes it even gets disturbing to the other anchors. Welcome back to the 30-minute drill. Once again, I'm your host, Michael Botwinick, along with my guests, Justin Horahan and Travis Volpe. And right now, we're talking with the NBA. Now, guys, the All-Star weekend just passed, and the All-Star game was one of the highest-scoring All-Star games of all time. Why do you think there's such a lack of defense this game?
Well, I'm going to say there's, in all All-Star games, there's not that much defense because, you know what, it's just a game. They're going to just play around. They don't want anyone getting hurt. It's really a game for fun. I mean, we know these players are good players, and they're just going to prove it and put on a show for the fans.
Yeah, like Travis said, I mean, they're all about themselves in this game. They just want to score points. They're not going out for rebounds or steals. They're looking to score points and get high numbers and look good.
Now, one of the events in the All-Star weekend that gets the most attention is the slam dunk contest. Now, judges this year: Kobe Bryant, Vince Carter, Dr. J, Michael Jordan, Dominique Wilkins. Some very star-studded judges, but they're great dunkers themselves, so they were a little hard on the contestants. Do you think that Dwight Howard really got robbed because he was considered to have one of the most creative dunks but didn't get a great score?
Yeah, I think he definitely did get robbed. I mean, when you can jump that high and put the sticker up there, that's pretty creative. No one else would have really thought of that. Everyone else's dunks, they were good dunks, but they could have been a little more creative. But I think you're right with the star-studded group of judges that we had. They were really expecting a lot out of these players, maybe expecting a little too much.
Yeah, Dwight Howard had a really creative dunk with the sticker. He got really high, and I expected him to get like a higher score than he did and move on to the next round. But they robbed him of that, and Green won it.
Now, Jason Campano, he was one of the surprises of All-Star Weekend. He won the three-point contest. Not many fans are familiar with him. He even levied for himself to get into the All-Star game. What do you think about his performance?
I think he's a great player. He's really a great shooter. He's going to be a great player for the Miami Heat organization. I mean, just last week I was watching him play. He is able to hit threes from anywhere on the court. He's really got a nice shot, and you really don't see that much in the NBA these days. But I'm going to say he really did put on a great performance at the NBA three-point contest. He won it all for his respective Miami Heat, and I think he's going to continue what he's doing.
I was expecting him to win this three-point contest. Coming into the weekend, he was hot. He was putting up numbers more than he ever has before. He feels like he found a home with Miami, so he's comfortable now. And in the three-point contest, he really excelled and hit a lot of shots and played very well.
Now, Las Vegas is a city that really wants an NBA franchise. After what happened during this All-Star weekend, do you think they deserve one?
I'm going to say no because, you think of Las Vegas, you really don't think of NBA basketball teams. You think of gambling and, partying around in Las Vegas. But you know what? An NBA team in Las Vegas, I don't think would be a good idea because, you have the discrepancy between the gambling between the teams. You really wouldn't have a home team in Las Vegas because everybody, wants a different team to win all the time. So your team wins a game maybe, but you really don't want them to win sometimes. It's pretty confusing, but I'm going to say no. I really don't think they should.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Travis there. I don't think they should have any NBA team there. There's no other sports that have a team there, so why should NBA have a team there? And even at All-Star Weekend, they did a pretty good job, but not a great job with all security. There were many fights and a lot of outbreaks that happened, so I don't think it's a great environment for an NBA basketball team.
Now, shortly after the All-Star game is the trade deadline. One of the teams that was supposed to do a lot during the trade deadline was the New Jersey Nets, and they decided not to make any moves. And after that, they went on a 3-game winning streak. Vince Carter also won Player of the Week, and they really been performing well. What do you do you think that was a good decision not to trade any of their players?
You know, I'm going to say this was a good decision. I mean, you were going to send Jason Kidd out to Los Angeles and maybe get some young players, but I really don't. I think they really need Jason Kidd, and also Vince Carter. They were talking about him maybe even going to the Knicks. But having Vince Carter and Jason Kidd on the Nets, you know, really strengthens their team. I mean, they're both great. They're both all-star players. They've both proven they could win and make it to the playoffs. And I think this is only going to make them better keeping them.
I think it was a good choice not to trade. Jason Kidd and Vince Carter are a great combination together. They put up a lot of points, a lot of numbers. They're the reason of winning most games. If you traded Jason Kidd, that's pretty much the heart and soul of the Nets team. He's the leading assist and rebounder probably, and he's the heart and soul of the team. If you trade Vince Carter, you lose the Nets. The Nets will not exceed.
Now, across the Hudson River is another team in the metropolitan area, the New York Knicks, and they're not expected to perform well this season, but they really have. One of their rising stars is David Lee. Do you think that he will be able to lead them to the playoffs this year?
You know, I'm going to say he will. I mean, right now the Knicks are in the 10th spot right now, and they really have been playing good basketball. I mean, their team is really starting to click. Marbury, Eddie Curry, Crawford, and now David Lee, who might even win the Sixth Man Award. You know, they're just really starting to click. They're starting to get things together, and I think they're going to make a run for the playoffs.
I'm going to disagree with you there. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs because David Lee is a young and inexperienced player, even though he's playing good right now. But when playoff time comes and all the pressure and all the press and everything that comes down to, he's not going to exceed.
Now, another team in the Eastern Conference is the Miami Heat, and they have one of the best players in the league, Dwayne Wade, but he hurt his shoulder recently. And right now he's deciding whether to get season-ending surgery or grind it out for the rest of the season. What do you think would be the best decision for him?
Well, the best decision for him and the organization would be for him to get the surgery. You know what? Getting the surgery can only do good for him. I mean, right now the Heat are playing well. I think they can make the playoffs without Dwayne Wade personally. But with him, you know, they're going to be better. But we got to look in the long run in this situation. Dwayne Wade's a great player. He's their franchise player. And if you want him to be good for the next couple of years and for the rest of his life, you need him to be healthy. So I think the surgery is going to help that.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you there, Travis. I think he needs a surgery for later years to come, not this year, because I don't think Miami's going to do well in playoffs either way, with him or without him. So the surgery would be for later years to come so he doesn't have problems in his franchise.
Thank you, Justin and Travis. I'll be back with more 30-minute drill right after this.
Ever since we started 30-minute drill, security's been a major problem.
The security stinks.
I think we found a solution for this problem.
Hey, Brian.
What's going on, John? Let me see your pass. Okay, you can go through.
See you, man.
Oh, man, 5 minutes.
Botwinick, you got a pass?
Nah, I lost that pass in the hole. Come on, B-Ross.
Welcome back to the 30-minute drill.
I deny you entrance.
Oh, snap.
Talking about is another player on the other side of the ball. That might used to say, running home.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 30-minute drill. I'm your host, Dan Cohen, alongside Travis Della Volpe and Michael Botwinick, and we're here to begin this year's discussion on MLB baseball for the 2007 season. As everybody knows, spring training just started a week or two ago. So that's a lot of talks now down in Florida and Arizona with the Grapefruit League and everything. So first of all, I want to talk about Manny Ramirez. You know, he showed up early to spring training, 4 days after it started, but 3 days before he said he would. So, I mean, are you fed up with Manny? And we dealt with this for a while. I mean, have you had enough of Manny, or do you think it's okay?
You know what? I am definitely fed up with Manny Ramirez. I mean, all this talk about Manny is just Manny being Manny. I don't buy that at all. I mean, you can't show up late to spring training when, you know, you're supposed to be early. You're a team player. Everything just can't be about him. And if the Red Sox are going to win another World Series, they need him to step up and be a team player.
I agree with Travis. I mean, you have a commitment to a team, and it's not even like he's on a bad team. The Red Sox are a very good team. They have some good pitching support, and a lot of teams would be killing to play for them, and Manny's just taking it casually and not really caring about baseball right now.
Next up, we have Dice K, you know, the Japanese pitching sensation who, without a doubt, is going to be the story of this year no matter how he does, whether he wins the Cy Young or he gets hurt or he's a complete bust. So he's obviously, you know, we have to talk about him. He's pretty much so far the main topic of this year's spring training, but yet you still wonder, is he overhyped or underhyped so far?
I'm going to say he's overhyped. I mean, he hasn't proven anything yet in the major leagues. I mean, we all know he is a sensational pitcher for the Japanese league, but coming over to MLB, this is a totally different game, and you really don't know what he's going to do. So, you know, all these reporters and people thinking that he's going to be a good player, we really don't know yet.
Well, I think the hype is justified. He seems like a very good pitcher. The pitching coaches for the Red Sox are just raving over him. And I mean, a lot of teams just kill to have a pitcher like him.
Next up, I want to talk about Roger Clemens, the Rocket, you know, a perennial starter for the past over 2 decades now. So he's still in the MLB, and there's pretty much, his agent came out and said he's talking about 3 teams, staying with the Astros, the Yankees, and the Red Sox. Who do you think he'll end up playing with this year?
You know, I'm going to say he's going to stay in Houston with the Astros. I mean, even though Andy Pettitte made his return back to the Bronx, I'm going to say he's going to part ways this time, and he's going to stay in Houston with the Astros, stay with his family. You know, he's been pitching there his last couple of years. I think he's going to end up and staying there for the rest of his career.
Well, I think he's going to go to the Yankees. I mean, Astros are not looking like a good team right now, and the Red Sox don't really look like they have a big need for a pitcher. And the Yankees do. They only have 4 starting pitchers that are locked up. You have Carl Bavano with his injury history. He's always a question mark. So I think Clemens will evidently choose the Yankees.
Next, Bobby Abreu. Big trade last year the Yankees did towards the end of the season to go get Bobby Abreu, and he just strained an oblique muscle, and the minimum he's going to be out for 2 weeks. So, and do you guys think he's going to be ready?
You know, I hope he's ready for opening day, but I'm going to say, you know what? The Yankees have so many good players. They really don't need him to like maybe overwork it and get back in shape when he really could take some time off. When you can let Melky Cabrera maybe step in and play, he's been really playing good. But I'm going to say you're going to have to give time to Bobby Abreu, let him heal properly.
I gotta agree with Travis. I mean, it's not worth it to risk a future injury to start in the beginning of the season. I mean, they're gonna need him late in the season, and they still have Melky Cabrera as a very good outfielder who could really fill in and do a great job for them.
Next up, I want to talk about Gary Sheffield, his new team, the Detroit Tigers. During ESPN's Sunday Conversation with Peter Gammons, he made some sour comments towards the Yankees organization, who he played for the past couple of years. He was really upset that Joe Torre sat him out of Game 3 in last year's divisional playoffs after he kind of struggled in Game 2. Do you think he was justified to make these mean comments?
Well, I'm going to say he was, but you know what? He really did not play well last season. He only played in probably around 30 games because of that injury he had to his wrist and also the other injuries. So, you know what, just putting him in there for a playoff game when, you know, he really should be playing, but, you know, this can kind of go both ways. I think Joe Torre made the right decision, though, sitting him out. But I'm going to say, yeah, he does have a reason to be angry at Joe Torre because, you know what, he's an all-star player, and he should be playing.
Well, I think that Gary Sheffield's comments were just out of anger right now. I mean, he's just traded for a team that he poured his heart and soul into. I mean, wouldn't you be mad if that happened to you?
Next, I want to talk about milestones. There's a couple big Hall of Fame number milestones that could be reached this year. Let's just go a little bit of a lightning round here, yes or no. Barry Bonds has 734 home runs. He needs 21 more to tie and 22 to break Hank Aaron's record. Yes or no? Do you think he'll do it this year?
Yes, he will this year. And if not this year, I'm going to say he's not going to come back for another year.
Well, I'm going to say no. I mean, I think this, without his alleged steroid use, I think that might slow him down. I don't think he'll be able to do it.
Next, Craig Biggio is coming into this year with 2,930 hits. He needs 70 more to join the almost Hall of Fame lock 3,000 hit club. Do you think he's going to do it?
Yeah, I'm going to say he does it. He's not going to play that many games, but I think he's going to get it done.
Well, I think his lack of playing time will prevent him from doing this. But if he doesn't do it this year, then he'll probably do it next year.
The last one I want to do for today, Manny Ramirez, 470 home runs. That means he needs 30 more for 500, which is also almost a Hall of Fame lock number. Do you think he'll do it?
I think he will do it. I think he will surpass that number by a lot by the end of his career.
Well, I think if he doesn't do it by the end of the season, he'll definitely do it by the end of his career. He could have 600 by the time we're done talking about him.
All right, guys, and last question today. I think you guys are going to enjoy this. Let's just talk about, there's a lot of odd injuries that kind of happen in baseball. So, Travis, what's your favorite odd injury thus far?
My favorite odd injury is Ken Griffey Jr. breaking his wrist wrestling with his kids. I mean, how fragile is this guy?
Well, I'm going to say Kevin Brown, another fragile guy. He slipped getting out of his hot tub. I mean, come on, Kevin. You're better than that.
It's pathetic. I mean, come on. All right. Thank you, guys, Travis and Mike. We'll be right back with more 30-minute drill right after this. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 30-minute drill. Once again, I'm your host, Dan Cohen, alongside Travis Della Volpe and Michael Botwinick, and we're here to discuss the NFL. Although the NFL season is over, there's really no offseason anymore in the NFL, so we can definitely talk about it. First of all, Jamal Lewis was waived by the Ravens. Do you think that he'll be picked up, one, and do you think he's still a valuable running back in the NFL?
You know, I'm going to say he gets picked up, but he's not going to be a main focus for any teams. Even if he does get picked up, I'm going to say he's going to be a second-string running back. I mean, his glory days are over after that Super Bowl win in 2000. So I'm going to say he really lost a lot of value.
Well, I'm going to say he's going to get picked up. I think he's going to be re-signed by the Ravens because I think he's still really the face of their franchise. But if he doesn't re-sign with the Ravens, I think he can do a really good job of tutoring a young running back and showing him how to carry the ball or dodge defenders or something like that.
Next up, we'll talk about veteran quarterback Brett Johnson from Travis's Minnesota Vikings. Do you guys still think that he can play in the NFL, and do you see him getting any starting playing time this season?
I'm going to say no with that. No with both answers here because he's almost 39 years old. He's going to be turning 39 this year. And, well, the Vikings already dropped him because they're looking for the young guns in the future. But I'm going to say, you know, maybe he can be like a mentor, like you said about Jamal Lewis. He could be a mentor for a young quarterback, maybe help show him through the ropes a couple of things. And I'm going to say he's got a couple years left.
Well, I'm going to say he's probably done. He had a great career, but I think his skills are really diminished as he's gotten older, and I think he'll probably retire right now.
Next, guys, let's start talking about a graduate of the University of Miami, Willis McGahee, running back. He's played 3 years of a 4-year deal, so he has one more year left. So obviously the Bills are obviously thinking about opting to trade him. The Giants have shown interest. Do you think that he'll stay with the Bills or possibly go to another team like Giants or someone else?
Yeah, I'm going to say he's going to get traded to maybe the Giants because, you know, Buffalo really hasn't been working out for him. They really haven't done well at that since he's been there. And he is a good running back, and he's proven that he's a good running back. So I'm going to say he's going to want to go to another team and possibly get a chance at a Super Bowl ring.
Well, as a big Giants fan, I've been following the situation very intensely, and it appears the Giants are prepared to offer the Buffalo Bills a 4th-round pick for Willis McGahee. Obviously, it's not what the Bills wanted, but I mean, when it comes down to it, I think they'd rather have a 4th-round pick than just see him walk after this year.
Okay, next up, as a big Giants fan, Michael, I'm sure you are aware that on October 28th, Week 8 of the NFL season, the Giants will be playing at the Dolphins, but not in Miami. This time it's going to be in London, England. Now, reminiscing back to baseball, I remember a couple years back, the Yankees played in Japan, and I remember when to open the season, when they got home, it almost seemed like the jet lag affected them, and they really had a slow start that year. So do you think that this is going to affect the Giants or the Dolphins, and do you think it's good for the NFL?
I'm going to say it's going to affect both teams. I mean, just by saying that it's in Week 8 of the season, that's in the middle of the season. Like, it's going to affect a couple of games before and after that game. Maybe if it was at the beginning of the year or maybe at the end, it wouldn't affect them as much. But I'm going to say this is good for the NFL. It's really going to show a lot for other countries. Maybe NFL can get involved in other countries. NFL Europe, you know, they have. So I'm going to say it's good.
Well, I'm going to say it's good also. I mean, you can't really compare the NFL games to baseball games because there's such a long period of time in between the NFL games. You have a week to recover from jet lag.
That's a good point.
And also, there's a lot of Giants fans in England. So I'm happy about that. It's like an extra home game for the Giants without giving up a home game.
Next, I want to discuss the NFL Players Association. Interesting that the Players Association would do this. They proposed a 3-strike rule, which is going to for off-field incidents. So basically, you get 3 times of an off-field incident, and then you're out of the NFL. So now this rule isn't in effect yet, but if it is ever put in effect, do you think that this is a good idea in terms of dealing with off-field incidents?
I'm going to say this is a good idea, but maybe it should be a little less. Maybe it should be the 2-strike rule, because you can't have players running around off the field doing things that they're doing right now. I mean, it's really disrespectful to the league and themselves. And I'm going to say the Bengals are going to have some trouble with this because you know their off-season problems.
Well, I'm going to say it's a good rule. I mean, NFL players are really role models for young kids, and if a kid sees on the news that his favorite player punched a stripper in the face, I mean, he's not going to be happy.
Moving back on what we just talked about with this new 3-strike rule, a guy that could definitely be affected by this would be star cornerback for the Tennessee Titans, Pac-Man Jones. He's had 8 off-the-field incidents since the Titans drafted him in 2005. The most recent, as Michael commented earlier, a strip club shooting on February 19th that left 1 man paralyzed. Do you think this is going to affect other teams' opinions on him in terms of trading him or possibly signing him as a free agent?
You know, you'd like to say it doesn't. You'd like to only think about his playing and his talent on the field, but this is definitely going to affect him. I mean, no team wants to sign a player that's going to be in this much trouble, you know, off the field. You really don't want that for a player.
Well, I agree with Travis. It's really going to hurt his trade value and free agent value. But I think that some team will try to pick him up and look at his tremendous value on the field, not off, and see if he can maybe clean up his act.
All right, guys, I just want to wrap it up this week with probably the most interesting player in the NFL, Terrell Owens. He had 2 surgeries this week on one of his fingers. Is this something to be concerned about this early on, keeping in mind his poor teamwork ethic and the amount of balls he dropped last year?
I'm going to say this surgery has nothing to do with his team attitude and the way he catches balls, because, you know what, he's an NFL receiver, and you got to be able to get over this.
Well, I say that it is going to affect him. I mean, he showed the effects of his injury last year as he dropped so many balls, and I think it could only get worse this year. He has 2 surgeries and it still hasn't worked. I mean, it's not good news, and his career as a Cowboy could be ending.
All right, guys, thank you, Travis, Michael. I'm Dan Cohen, and we'll see you next week for an all-new episode of the 30-Minute Drill.
Welcome back to the 30-minute drill. 30-minute drill. 30-minute drill. 30-minute drill.
They're just amazing. They're so good.
So many things have gone wrong, and they've
just been a prince all throughout this entire year on the.
It's simply amazing.
It's simply amazing.
Playoff time now. Everybody's serious now. There's no more joking around.
It was just terrible.
Having more experience. 7 on his game last year. I think that despite that, they'll be popping the man show at the end of this season.
So turn around and I'll pick up the slack.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the 30-Minute Drill. I'm your host, Dan Cohen, alongside Michael Botwinick and Travis Della, and we're here to talk about MLB Spring Training Installment number 2. First of all, I want to start off with Sammy Sosa. He hit his first home run of this year's Spring Training against the Royals in the Rangers' 5-0 win. Can Sammy make a successful comeback to baseball and take people's minds off the steroids?
Well, I don't think he can. I mean, the steroids really tainted his reputation, and I'm not sure if he will be able to overcome that. He's really a great player in his time, but you got to wonder if steroids played any part in that.
Yeah, steroids did play a big part in this. I mean, to talk about him, whenever you hear the name Sammy Sosa, you're going to think about the steroid issue and also the cork back situation. But I'm going to say Sammy Sosa is a little too old to make a comeback and actually be successful.
Also, going back to steroids, you know, the MLB's been plagued with the whole steroid issue in the past couple of years. Do you think that it's gonna kind of take a slow down, or do you think we're gonna get more players kind of like involved in this?
Well, I don't know. I think the government has to do a better job of finding players and punishing them. I mean, the suspensions they have set up right now are not enough to discourage players from doing steroids to get huge contracts that will help them for the rest of their lives.
I'm going to say right now, I think the Major League Baseball Association is doing a very good job of handling people with steroids. You know, in the past couple of seasons, we haven't seen that many cases of steroid uses and suspensions for that matter. But I'm going to say they're doing a good job, but if they really want to buckle it down, I'm going to say they should make the suspensions a little longer.
Carl Pavano, Yankees pitcher, he started a game against the Phillies the other day. He threw 33 pitches. 16 of them were strikes, 1 earned run, and 1 hit. Now, this obviously isn't an incredible start, but it is good since he hasn't pitched in a while. Do you think that Carl Pavano can finally live up to his expectations and throw a full winning season with the Yankees?
Well, I think he can. I mean, you got to feel good for Carl Pavano. He really worked hard to rehab himself from a lot of injuries. And it's really been unfortunate because he has great skills and he can really be a great part of this Yankees team.
You know, I'm gonna say he's gonna get injured again. You know, it always happens, but I'm gonna say he's gonna get it. He's gonna get a couple more wins this year because the Yankees bats are so alive this year. They're gonna be able to help him out.
March 5th marked the spring training debut of 2 perennial aces, Mark Prior and Kerry Wood of the Chicago Cubs. Both pitchers have had injury-plagued careers so far. Do you think that they can finally both complete a full season with the Cubs and really show those Chicago fans what it's like to have those 2 aces for a full season?
Well, I think they will. I mean, Mark Prior and Kerry Wood have really done a great job of rehabbing, also like Carl Pavano, and Mark Prior will be a very good young ace in this league for years to come, and I think that he'll have a full season this year.
I'm going to say both these players are really going to step it up this year. I mean, the face of the Cubs is changing. They added so many players this year, over $300 million in payroll this year. So I'm going to say they're going to really turn around this year and get it done.
Chicago Cubs, obviously, haven't won a World Series in a very long time. They had the whole issue with Bartman a couple years ago, and they've been close in recent years. Do you think if Wood and Pryor can stay healthy for a whole year and pitch like they've been known to pitch when they've pitched, do you think they can win?
Well, I think they can win. They both show that they have very good stuff, and I think they'll get a lot of wins if they stay healthy.
Yeah, I'm going to say not just because of them, but their whole team has improved this year, but they're going to be a major part of that.
Greg Maddux, new team, the San Diego Padres, he made his spring training debut on March 4th. He threw 2 scoreless innings, which for a spring training start, you got to think that's pretty good. However, in his opinion, he didn't pitch good. He thinks he could pitch a lot better. He threw 40 pitches. Do you think that he can pull off another successful season this year for the Padres?
Well, I think he can, but I mean, he has to be a little less hard on himself. I mean, he's getting up there in age. He's 40 years old. Many of the players in the MLB are 4 or 5 years retired already. So I mean, he's got to lower his measurement of how he performs.
Yeah, he is an older guy in the league, but I'm going to say he's going to get it done. He's going to have a winning year because he's proven he has year in and year out. He's come in, he's pitched well for any team he's been on.
At the age of 40 and 333 career wins, he's already a lock for the Hall of Fame. Why do you think he's still playing? Is it the love for the game, the passion, or does he want stats? Why do you think he's still playing?
Well, I think it has to be the passion of the game. I mean, when you've poured your whole life into something for so many years, I mean, it's kind of hard just to give up the habit, and he's not used to staying home during the spring. And I think he's just itching to play baseball.
Yeah, I don't have to agree with you there, Bot, because he really does enjoy playing baseball, and that's his life. That's really his life. So he's going to stick around as long as he can. And I'm going to say after this, he's going to maybe, take a managing job somewhere or be somewhere above.
Next up, guys, I want to talk about Mike Piazza. This will be his first year in the American League, so he's going to play designated hitter for the entire year, something that he hasn't done ever. Now, he's always been a great power hitter, a great hitter, but he's proved that he really isn't a great defensive catcher. Pretty much, if you get to first base, it's just you can literally walk to second base because it's so easy to steal off him. Do you think playing a full year on DH and getting that extra rest of not having to sit behind the plate for a whole game is going to really improve his offensive numbers?
Well, I think it'll really help him. I mean, it'll utilize his skills of hitting. He'll probably go down in his history as one of the best hitting catchers of all time. And he's not a great defensive player, so I think this will help the Oakland Athletics, and I think it will help him boost his numbers.
I'm going to just disagree with you there because his prime is past. He was in his prime when he was with the Mets. Those were his glory days. Now he's really, he's just getting old. He's just looking for a way to stay in the game by going to the DH. And also moving to the American League, that's going to really affect his numbers because he's facing a lot of pitchers that he's never seen before, and that's always a change.
Thank you, guys. We'll be back with more 30-minute drill right after this.
Hi, and welcome back to the 30-minute drill. Once again, I'm your host, Michael Botwinick, along with my guest, Travis Della, Volpe, and today we're going to be talking about the NFL draft. Now, Travis, the NFL draft in a couple weeks, is it really time for the teams of the NFL to revamp their team and get some good youth in there? My favorite team, the Giants, has some big holes this year. I think they're looking to take a linebacker or a cornerback this year, maybe Patrick Willis or Leon Hall. What do you think about your Vikings?
Yeah, I'm going to say my Vikings, you know what, they're going to have a couple holes this year, mainly on the offense because their defense is really settled. They're really starting to play well, but their offense, they really need a quarterback. I don't know if we can trust Tavares Jackson with the team yet. I mean, he's very inexperienced. So I'm going to say we have to draft a quarterback, get someone else who can maybe step in there. Also, we are really lacking a big playmaker out of the wide receiver position. We were supposed to get that out of Troy Williamson a couple years ago, but he really hasn't stepped up and proven that he could do it.
Now, every year it seems that the players become more and more athletic. And there's some great leaders in the NFL draft this year, some very fast players, athletic players. Who do you think will be the biggest game changer in this draft?
I'm going to say the biggest game changer is going to be Greg Olsen out of Miami. He really showed NFL scouts that he can play football. I mean, at Miami, he was an All-American at Miami. He really played well for them. But at the NFL Combine a couple weeks ago, he really showed himself with a 4.4 540. He really proved his time in there, and he's really going to step it up in the draft.
Now, a lot of teams in the NFL right now that have higher picks, such as the Raiders or the Lions or the Cardinals, they're really lacking a leader on their team. There's some very mature players in this draft, such as Brady Quinn or Jamarcus Russell. Who do you think will be the biggest leader for their team this year?
I'm going to see the biggest leader is going to be Calvin Johnson. Any team he goes to, he is going to be the spark for their team. He is a very good receiver, very talented. Also, he's very big and strong. He can take control of any game. All you have to do is really throw it up to him, and he'll make a play.
Now, the first pick is going to the Raiders. They're expected to take Jamarcus Russell. Brady Quinn is another one of their options. What do you think about their decision to most likely take Jamarcus Russell?
You know, I'm going to disagree with that. I'm going to say they really should take Brady Quinn. I mean, Brady Quinn's really proven he can play quarterback. He's played quarterback for Notre Dame in the last 2.5 seasons, and he's really done an exceptional job there. Unlike Jamarcus Russell, he really just came onto the spot after his bowl game when they beat Notre Dame when he played good. But I'm going to say I'm going to say Brady Quinn, he really settled in there, and he really showed that he could play.
Now, neither Brady Quinn nor Jamarcus Russell worked out at the Combine this year. A lot of good players did work out at the Combine. Who impressed you the most?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to say Greg Olsen again. I mean, he really did step up and play well. I'm going to say he's going to be a steal for any team. I'm going to say he's going to be the only tight end in the draft for the first round. I'm going to say he's going to be really good.
Now, the 40-yard dash is what a lot of the general managers really look at in a player, what they really focus on. A lot of general managers like speed. Do you think that the 40 time really shows their really game speed?
You know, I'm going to say it doesn't. No player ever runs 40 yards in a straight line at any course of a game. So I'm going to say, I'm going to say they're really based on their skills, their athletic skills, their jumping, their ability to move and cut around the field.
Now, every year, scouts make some bad decisions on scouting players, such as Marcus Colson went in the 7th round, or D'Amico Ryans went late in the 2nd round, yet they're both Rookie of the Year candidates. Who do you think will be the steal in this year's draft?
You know, there are so many players in this draft that could be steals. Nobody really knows what's going to happen. So I'm going to say I'm not really sure now.
Now, Joe Thomas, the tackle from Wisconsin, it looks like he's going to go first. He's projected to go first in the first round, early in the first round, in almost every mock draft. Do you think the Cleveland Browns will take him, or do you think the Lions will take him before that?
I'm going to say the Lions take him. They really do need a good guy who can step in there and play offensive line. I'm going to say the Browns are going to take Calvin Johnson because he's going to be the best available player at the time.
Now, a lot of people say that it's not good to pick an offensive tackle early in the draft because he's not a big-name player who won't make big plays that you'll notice. But do you think that he's a big part of this team?
You know, I'm going to disagree with you there. They shouldn't take any offensive tackles within the first couple of picks of the draft. You know, this went back last year when the Houston Texans took Mario Williams, the defensive end, because they really had a chance to get Reggie Bush, and that would have really been a good player for them to have. Mario Williams, he did have a pretty good year, but not as good as Reggie Bush would have done for them.
Now, speaking of Reggie Bush, he was early in the draft talk. He was expected to be the #1 pick, and he wasn't. Do you think there's anybody this year that will surprise us where he falls to?
You know, I'm going to say maybe, there's a possibility that Brady Quinn can get that #1 spot, and maybe Jamarcus Russell's going to drop.
Now, Brady Quinn, he's very confused of why his stock was dropping. I mean, he didn't do anything in the past couple weeks. Why do you think his stock has dropped?
You know, I'm going to say his stock has dropped because there are so many other players that really stepped it up in the combine and in the workouts and the interviews that they had. So I'm going to say it's really not his fault, but other players are just stepping it up.
Now, since he was so upset at this, he did a bench press at the combine. He bench pressed 24 reps of 225 pounds. And that's just amazing for a quarterback. I mean, most of the offensive linemen do in the low 30s, high 20s. Do you think this really shows his work ethic to other NFL teams?
Yeah, I'm going to say it does. He really did impress me with that 24 reps. Other players like Greg Olsen, he only had 23 reps. So I'm going to say, you know what, he really did impress me and probably the other scouts, and he proved that he can be a long, durable guy in the NFL.
Well, thank you, Travis. We'll be back with more 30-minute drill right after this. Sometimes, hosting the 30-minute drill let the fame get to their head.
Where's Dan?
I don't know, man. Ever since he got the lead anchor job, he hasn't been on time.
Starting at host, standing at 5'5", 140 pounds, the offspring of Karen and Scott, Daniel Adam Cohen.
Sometimes it even gets disturbing to the other anchors.
A lot of you may know Dave Suntup as one of the lead play-by-play announcers and maybe even co-president of the TV club. But there's a lot more to him. I mean, he's really intelligent and really amusing, and what you may not know is he's also a two-time freestyle dancing champion. I know, it's hard to believe.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 30-Minute Drill. I'm your host, Dan Cohen, alongside my special guest today, John McCugh, and we're here to have the second installment of the John McCugh Soccer Report, where we'll cover soccer from all around the world. Now, the big thing in soccer right now is the UEFA Cup occurring right now. Now, John, Manchester United versus Lille. Manchester United coming out with the win, but very controversial. A lot of people think that Man U shouldn't have won that game. What's your opinion on this?
I gotta say, I must have watched that replay, that free kick, a bunch of times, and it's very clear. Rooney has a choice. He decides that he's not close enough, so he asks the ref, am I 10 yards away? And the ref says no, so he goes and places it. As soon as Wayne Rooney places the ball, the ref clearly turns around and starts walking. When Ryan Giggs comes up, hits it, and gets a goal. The defenders and the Lille goalkeeper didn't even know it. But the point is that he completely turned around. He completely showed them that, it was a free kick. And that's basically it. You got to accept that. That was a goal.
All right, next I want to talk now. One big difference between football in Europe and football in America is in football in America, you lose once, you're out. Football in Europe, you get another chance. What do you think is going to happen in this second leg?
I think it's going to get down to a pretty close game. Manchester United's going to have a lot of morale because they're going to be playing at home. I know they have a lot of fan support. Old Trafford's going to be filled to the brim with people. I think it's going to be a pretty close game. It might come down to FC Porto. No, I'm sorry, not FC Porto. Lille scoring a game. I'm thinking of Chelsea game. I'm sorry, but it might be that down to them scoring a goal and them fighting it out in extra time. But I think Manchester United will come out with the win.
Back to the aforementioned Chelsea game, Captain John Terry injured. Now, do you think this is going to have a huge effect on Chelsea's game against FC Porto?
I don't think it's going to have a huge effect. Chelsea destroyed FC Porto at Stadio Dragao, and Shevchenko coming out with a couple of goals. I think Andriy Shevchenko is going to help them lead the way. I think Simon Cowlou will get some time to play. I think he's going to help lead the way. The defense is pretty solid. They have a really good goalkeeper in Koch. So I think they're going to, especially because they're playing home, so I think they're going to come out really well.
All right, before we leave the topic of the UEFA Cup, I gotta hear your bold prediction, John. Who's taking the UEFA Cup this year?
Manchester United's gonna be my favorite team, so I'm gonna go with them. I know Real Madrid's doing really good, and I think this is gonna be their last year where they're gonna really shine because they're shying away from having big players play for them, and everybody's retiring, everybody's getting old, and not a lot of people are stepping up to take their place. So, but I definitely think that Manchester United has a good, solid team, and I think they're gonna be able to take it.
Now, let's sail across the Atlantic Ocean and the MLS is the soccer league over here in America. A lot of big things coming with the MLS now. Big stars from Europe possibly coming over. You know, David Beckham going to play for the LA Galaxy. Big thing with Beckham, lower body injury in the Real Madrid game. Is this something that the Galaxy should worry about since they're paying this guy $25 million?
No, I don't think they're going to worry about it too much. I mean, it's a lower body injury. I'm sure they have great medical staff that'll be able to take care of that before their season gets really underway. I mean, he's the only great player they have. I mean, they're like, if you had to rate LA Galaxy from 1 to 5, they'd be about a 3. And I think Beckham's just overall playing at least one game is going to help them, let alone playing, you know, a bunch of them or the whole season.
Now, moving to the East Coast of the United States, we have your team, the Red Bulls. Now, John, what do you think about the Red Bulls pursuing big towns from Europe?
I'm thinking that's going to be a really good idea. I know Bruce Arena's coaching the New York Red Bulls this year, and there's been a lot of talk. They have 2 really good players that are coming in from Europe, one from Germany and I think one from Italy. The third player is the one that everybody's talking about. It's not official yet. Transfer season's not here yet, but everybody's talking about who's it going to be. There's a couple rumors that are going around next season that it'll either be Zinedine Zidane, Ruud van Nistelrooy, or Raul. I don't think Zinedine Zidane's going to be doing it. I mean, I think when he meant that he's going to retire from soccer, I think he means it for good, not just national, but league as well. And the only possible thing I'm seeing out of those rumors is Raul.
Now, Zinedine Zidane, obviously the controversial World Cup play with the headbutt. Now, if he did come to America and played for, say, the Red Bulls, do you think that headbutt would have any effect on the fans?
Not so much, I think, because it didn't really have an effect on the USA national team, and it didn't have an effect on, you know, United States' audience. Maybe because a lot of New York fans are Italian, so that might have an effect just overall from a social and, you know, cultural standpoint. But anything other than that, I don't think it's going to have a difference.
Last question, just a quick, you know, this upcoming MLS preview. What do you got for me?
I think the New York Red Bulls are going to do pretty good this season, transfers or not. I see a lot of promise in DC United. I think it's going to come down to either Galaxy United probably taking the cup, and I think that in the playoffs it's going to be between United, Los Angeles Crew, or I'm sorry, Galaxy, and the Crew, Columbus Crew. So.
Thank you, John. That was John McCugh, our soccer guru. I'm Dan Cohen. We'll be back with more 30-minute drill right after this.
Ever since we started 30-minute drill, security's been a major problem.
The security stinks.
I think we found a solution for this problem.
Hey, Brian.
What's going on, John? Let me see your pass. Okay, you can go through.
See you, man.
Oh man, 5 minutes.
Botwinick, you got a pass?
Nah, I lost that pass in the hole. Come on, B. Ross.
Welcome back to the 30-minute drill.
I deny you entrance.
Oh, snap.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 30-minute drill. Once again, I'm your host, Dan Cohen, alongside another special guest, Brian Rossman. We're here to talk about the Brian Rossman Hockey Report, second installment. Now, right now, hockey getting close to the end of the season. Most teams have somewhere between 13 and 16 games remaining. We're done with the trade deadline. Couple big trades, couple veterans going to new teams, Ryan Smith, Bill Guerin. First of all, though, last night, Rangers, Islanders, huge game, very exhilarating. Rick DiPietro, 57 saves. Usually, if a team gets over 50 shots, you expect them to score a couple goals. The Rangers got 1. What do you think about this stellar performance by Rick DiPietro?
Well, over the past few years, he hasn't quite been up to par, not exactly what he's capable of, and I think last night it definitely showed what he's capable of. He played absolutely outstanding last night, making saves left and right, once off the back of the head, which is a miracle save, a couple off the post, goalie's best friend, as I would know, and, he just played outstanding. The defense, it broke down at times, but it just shows that the goalie's there to help whenever the defense breaks down. And that's what he did last night.
The newest Islander, number 94, Ryan Smith, fresh from the Edmonton Oilers. You know, interesting story. If you saw the press conference, he was really crying. He was really upset that he lost Edmonton. He basically said that his heart was still in Edmonton, even though he'd be playing for the Islanders now, and he would love to win the Cup with the Islanders and bring it back home to Edmonton. What do you think about this? Do you think this could affect the Islanders the way that he says that his soul is still in Edmonton?
Well, any player that's been on a team for that long, you know, they're gonna have some devotion toward that team. You know, I think Edmonton releasing him to the Islanders, I think it's a good move because, you know, Edmonton's not really going anywhere this year. I think they're starting to build toward the future, getting younger players. You know, but as far as going to the Islanders, you know, I think he's going to do a lot of good with the Islanders. You know, first night there getting an assist, which was really nice. And as they showed, I don't know if you see the replay, the net was off the moorings. He actually put it back on and was able to get that goal.
Now, I know you're a Devils fan, so I'm sure you're going to have an opinion on this. Cam Janssen, very interesting player. He's a feisty player. A very, very hard hit on Thomas Kaberle. Definitely we can, you know, wonder was it late or not. Nonetheless, he was suspended 3 games. What do you think about this?
I think that's definitely what he should have gotten. I mean, you know, it was definitely a late hit. It was obviously uncalled for, but, you know, he couldn't have just come out of nowhere and just did it for no reason. He had to have done something earlier in the game to get Janssen all wild up, and, you know, he just, you know, he unlocked on him.
Towards the end of the season, obviously, the playoff push. Huge discrepancy between the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. The 8th place teams in both conferences have relatively similar points. However, the big difference is the gap between the 8th and 9th team in the West and the 8th and 13th team in the East. It's incredible. The teams are so close to the East and yet so far in the West. What teams do you think are going to make those final pushes in the Eastern Conference and come out with playoff berths?
Well, as of right now, the 8th seed and still hanging on for dear life is the Hurricanes. I don't think they're going to make it to the playoffs. I think Boston, they've been playing really well with their goaltender. You know, they've been putting it together the past couple of games. I think they're going to make a push. I think they're going to get the 8th spot. And as far as the 5th, 6th, and 7th seeds, I think that's going to stay as it is right now.
The Islanders, the 7th seed currently, they're starting to make a push. They're not yet up to 6 or 5, but those are within reach. They possibly can catch the Penguins. They're in reach. Or do you think the Islanders are going to keep winning? They're one of the best teams so far in the new 2007 year. Do you think they're going to be able to push up and catch those teams ahead of them?
Oh, they're definitely going to keep winning. I mean, you know, they've been playing really well. They've been playing really hard. I think last night, you know, having allowed 57 shots on them, you know, it kind of showed how I think they're a little bit fatigued and a little tired, but I think, you know, they're going to get back in shape. They're going to play the hockey that we know they can play, and I think they're going to keep pushing. They might even, you know, might go up a seed or two and might be playing a better team.
Now, the New York Rangers, currently tied for 9th place in the Eastern Conference. They're just right outside of the playoff. They're only 2 points out, so it's within reach. What do you think the Rangers have to do to make that push and make the playoffs?
They just need to buckle down and focus. You know, Lundqvist the past couple of games, you know, he's been doing okay. Last night in the Islander game, making a little error, you know, not reading the puck quite well, you know, letting in a soft goal. You know, just Lundqvist has to stay focused. The team has to stay focused. They got to start, you know, burying him in the net.
Now, St. Louis Blues, trading away Bill Guerin for a couple young guys. This is possibly something that some teams would think of as dumb, trading a veteran away like this. I remember a couple years back, the Rangers dealt a couple veterans, and it could, you know, hurt the morale of the team. Do you think the Blues trading away Bill Guerin really hurt the morale of the team, or do you think it might have even raised it?
I think it lowered it for a while, just, you know, getting rid of such a big star. But for the future, you know, it's going to do a lot for them. You know, they're not quite up to par this year. You know, I think getting younger players is going to help develop themselves in the future. You know, maybe make a couple of playoff spots like they did in the past.
The last question I want to ask you today: Stanley Cup kind of predictions. That top Eastern team clashing with that top Western team. Who do you think those top 2 teams are right now in the NHL?
You know, it's really hard to say. You know, in East, Buffalo and New Jersey are, you know, they're pretty tight right now. I'm gonna say them 2 for the Atlantic Division Championship, and I think the Devils are gonna win that one, go to the finals. And as far as the West, you know, I really can't say it this time. It's so up in the air right now. The top 2 teams are so tightly matched. I really can't say it now.
Thank you, Brian. He's our hockey espionage here. I'm Dan Cohen, and we'll see you next week for an all-new episode of the 30-Minute Drill.
Welcome back to the 30-minute drill, 30-minute drill, 30-minute drill, 30-minute drill.
They're just amazing. They're so good.
So many things have gone wrong, and they've
Just been a prince all throughout this entire year on the
Simply amazing.
Simply amazing.
playoff time now. Everybody's serious now. There's no more joking around.
It was just terrible.
They have more experience. 7 on the game last year. I think that despite that, they'll be popping the greatest show at the end of this series.
So turn around and I'll pick up the slack. Take up this bridge.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 30-minute drill. I'm Aaron Ploshnick, your host this week, along with my guest Matt Weinstein. And as you all know, on March 11, 2007 of this year, we have Selection Sunday, the most important date in a lot of colleges' fates as far as the NCAA tournament goes. And we're here to talk about how the bracket looks so far. Who's in, who's out, who got snubbed, and who's going to win it all. So we're going to start off with the Midwest bracket in St. Louis. The number 1 seed there is the Florida Gators, last year's champions. And the number 2 seed is Wisconsin, who lost in the Big Ten championship game to Ohio State University. I'm going to hand it over to you, Matt. Matt, what do you think is going to happen in this bracket?
Well, I definitely see Florida coming out of it. I mean, they're experienced. They have all the players from last year. I mean, I think they could have a tough game with Arizona in the second round because Arizona is a good team. I think they're definitely better than an 8 seed. I don't think Wisconsin really has it anymore because, I mean, they didn't really have a good showing in the Big Ten tournament against Ohio State. I mean, I can definitely see Florida coming out of the bracket, Florida versus Wisconsin this week in the Elite 8, and then Florida coming out of that bracket.
Matt, a lot of people have Winthrop at the 11th seed upsetting Notre Dame at the number 6 seed in the first round. What do you have for that game?
I can definitely see Winthrop winning that game, but I still think Notre Dame is just a little too much firepower for Winthrop, and I don't think they can come out on top in that game.
Yeah, Notre Dame was the 18th seed in the AP poll as far as the standings went. We're going to move on to the East bracket, which happens to be in East Rutherford, New Jersey this year, our home state. Number 1 seed there is North Carolina. The number 2 seed there is Georgetown. Now, out of this bracket, I do not have the number 1 seed Tar Heels, as a lot of people do. Instead, I have those Georgetown Hoyas at the number 2 seed. And I see UNC getting upset in the Sweet 16 by the Texas Longhorns and the fabulous freshman Kevin Durant, because I just think he's going to lead that team past them. As far as other upsets go, Washington State is a weak number 3 seed, and Oral Roberts is a strong number 14 seed. And I have a surprise 14-3 upset in this bracket with Oral Roberts beating Washington State. But I think Georgetown comes out of this bracket. They buzz through until the Elite 8, and they'll have a little problem with Texas, but I think Georgetown wins that bracket. All right, we're going to move on to the West bracket, which is going to be held in San Jose, California this year. The number 1 team in that bracket is the Kansas Jayhawks. The number 2 team was the preseason number 1 UCLA Bruins. There's an opening round game, Florida A&M versus Niagara. Not many people know a lot about this team. If you had to pick a team, who would you pick?
I think I take Florida A&M. I think they can upset them and go against Kansas, which I don't really think they have a shot in anyway.
All right. But I see what you're saying. I agree with you. I think Florida A&M is the more experienced team of the two. So, what do you have in this bracket?
Well, I don't have the number 1 seed, just like you didn't have the number 1 seed in the East bracket. I have UCLA coming out of that bracket. They're going to play Kansas in the Elite 8, but there's not really much upsets here. I think Duke can upset Pittsburgh in the second round if it comes to that. But I still definitely see UCLA. I think they have a much more experienced, better team than Kansas.
Yeah, with Duke losing early in the rounds of the ACC tournament, they dropped their seed from a potential number 3 to 4 seed all the way down to a number 6 seed, where they have to play a tough Virginia Commonwealth team, who a lot of people underestimate. And they also thought that upset could be thrown in that Duke game based on this weak Duke team this year. But I have to agree with you. I think Duke has a possibility of an upset for Pittsburgh, but I just think Pittsburgh has played really strong, and Aaron Gray looks really dominant for them. So you have UCLA coming out of that bracket. And with that, we're going to move on to the South bracket, where it is being played in San Antonio, Texas. The number 1 seed is the Ohio State Buckeyes, the number 1 at the end of the season. And the Memphis Tigers, a very surprising number 2 pick in this bracket. Out of this bracket, I have the Ohio State Buckeyes, no surprise, number 1 seed coming in. And I just don't feel they're going to have much of a problem until they get to the Elite 8 when they have to play the Texas A&M Aggies.
Nevada, I have upsetting Memphis in the Sweet 16, the number 7 seed with Nick Fazekas, the huge center there, who should win Center of the Year. So there's our Final Four. We have Florida coming out of the Midwest, Georgetown coming out of the East, UCLA coming out of the West, and out of the South, the Ohio State Buckeyes. Take me through the Final Four, Matthew.
Well, Florida UCLA is going to be the first matchup. I kind of see UCLA possibly getting a little bit of an upset, but I think Florida's going to be too experienced for them. They were there last year. They know what to expect, and I think they're going to win that game. And then they're going to be playing either Georgetown or Ohio State, and I can see Ohio State winning that game solely because of Greg Oden. He's just such a dominant force in there, and I don't see anyone that can stop him on Georgetown. I think Ohio State has too much firepower, and it'll be Ohio State and Florida in the championship game.
And your winner is?
I'm gonna take Ohio State.
Okay. All right. As far as Florida and UCLA go, I have to take UCLA in this game. Preseason number 1, Florida tournament winners. I just think that fatigue is going to catch up to the Florida Gators because they didn't really have a good end to the season. So I have UCLA in this game. Georgetown, OSU, no surprise for me. Ohio State, and I just have them winning the whole thing. I just can't see anybody beating them. All right, last thoughts before we go. What do you think about this year's George Mason? Do you see a team that jumps out at you that might be this year's surprise Cinderella team?
You know, I can't really see it right now. I mean, I think the top teams are they're just so much better than the weaker teams in the brackets. So I really don't think you're going to be seeing another George Mason story again this year. I mean, it's always possible, but you never know. But I just don't see it right now.
I think Nevada, coming out of the South, has a chance to go to the Elite Eight, but I really don't see them going anywhere past the Final Four. That's going to do it for this segment. We'll be back with hockey right after this.
Dan DeSico, senior. Running back. Number 20.
Yes, block. 20, 15, makes a great beat. He's got room, number 5.
The Drive for 5 begins September 7th, 2007. Be there.
Hello, and welcome back to the 30-Minute Drill. I'm Aaron Ploshnick, joined again with Matt Weinstein, who also happens to be our resident hockey expert. So we're going to go ahead and move on to hockey. We have the Eastern Conference here, which is a bit of a jumble right now at the bottom as far as the Islanders, the Rangers, the Hurricanes, the Maple Leafs, the Canadiens, Boston. They're all within a game 2 or 3 of each other, and it looks like it could be a rough stretch going into the end of the season. So let's do a little bit of in or out here. If you had to pick a couple teams, tell me who's in and who's out. So let's start with the current number 7 seed New York Islanders.
The Islanders are definitely going to be in. I mean, their acquisition of Ryan Smith at the trade deadline shocked the entire hockey world, the entire sports world. I mean, Ryan Smith is Edmonton's Derek Jeter, basically. I mean, he's just the captain. Edmonton you saw him crying in the farewell conference. I mean, but now he's a New York Islander. They also brought Marc-Andre Bergeron over before the trade deadline. Great shot on the power play, and him and Ryan Smith have been working together for Edmonton. And I think they're experienced because Edmonton went to the Cup last year as an 8 seed. So Ryan Smith and Marc-Andre Bergeron, they went through it all, as from all the way to the bottom to all the way to the top to the Western Conference champions, and eventually they lost in the Stanley Cup Finals. But I never seen the Islanders in. Rick DiPietro is playing absolutely fantastic right now. They got Alexei Yashin back. Jason Blake has 35 goals. I mean, they're playing just great right now. So I definitely think they're in.
Yeah, the acquisition of Ryan Smith and with combination of Alexei Yashin and Marc-Andre Bergeron, very big for the Islanders. Just a note, Edmonton has not won a game since Ryan Smith has been traded. Very key point for Edmonton, who also happens to push themselves near the end of the playoff mix in the Western Conference. But moving back into the Eastern Conference, the current number 8 seed, right on the borderline of heaven and hell, is the New York Rangers. Are they out or are they in?
You know, I strongly dislike the Rangers. I think they can be in, but I just don't see it. I mean, I don't think Henrik Lundqvist has the experience yet to lead his team to the playoffs. I mean, they need to make a pretty hard playoff push right now. I mean, Martin Straka, Jaromir Jagr, I mean, they have great players, but Sean Avery has been a great acquisition from the trade deadline, but I just don't see them coming into the playoffs right now.
Yes, last Sunday they secured the A spot with that overtime shootout win, Jaromir Jagr against Carolina. And speaking of the Devil, Carolina Hurricanes, in or out?
I think they're out also. I mean, Cam Ward got hurt against the Rangers on Sunday. He got a laceration to his leg. I don't know when he's gonna be back, but John Graham is not nearly as good as Cam Ward, obviously, and they definitely need Cam Ward back if they're gonna make any sort of a playoff push. But it would seem like a pretty deep cut, so I don't know when he's gonna be back. But I mean, they have Ray Whitney. I mean, they got some solid players, Eric Stahl, but I don't think they're gonna make it without Cam Ward.
Carolina, last year's Stanley Cup champions. It's hard to tell them that they're not going to make the playoffs the year after winning the Stanley Cup. So I actually have them in. I think Eric Stahl is just a phenomenal player, and I can see him leading them into the playoffs. But we're going to move on to the current number 10 seed. They have 33 wins behind the 34 of the Islanders, Rangers, and Carolina. Toronto Maple Leafs, in or out?
I'm going to say Toronto's going to be in. They have a game in hand on Carolina. I think Matt Sundin, one of the greatest captains of pretty much all time, I think he's going to lead them into the playoffs, and I think they can actually make a legitimate playoff push once they're in there.
So Toronto's captain, Matt Sundin, he's been there forever. If you had to comment top 5 captains of all time, would you put Matt Sundin up there?
You can. I mean, you obviously have to have like Mark Messier up there, but you can put Matt Sundin up there. I mean, he's been there forever, and he's leading Toronto right now for however many years he's been there, 10, 15 years.
You can't forget Messier, the great one, Wayne Gretzky. There's a lot of good ones up there. So you have 2 teams in right now, which means the 11 and 12 seed, Montreal Canadiens and Boston Bruins, will not make the playoffs in your book, even though Montreal has 34 wins, Boston has 33. Why will neither of those teams make the playoffs?
You know, Montreal, they have one more game played than Toronto, so that does come into play a lot because Toronto can make the push at the end. But Montreal, they just don't have enough firepower in their lineup to make that legitimate playoff push. They don't have enough scorers. I mean, I just don't see that. And then Boston, I mean, I can't see that either because they're just not. They're 71 points. I mean, they're way low compared to what the other teams are. I mean, Zdeno Chara is a great leader. He's a great player, tallest player in the NHL at 6 feet 9 inches. But I just don't see either of them making it in.
All right. So your 8 teams in the 8 teams in the Eastern Conference: Buffalo, New Jersey, Tampa Bay, Ottawa, Pittsburgh, Atlanta, the New York Islanders, and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Let's take your rankings because you're the hockey expert. Who's going to win out of the Eastern Conference?
Well, I can definitely see the Devils or Buffalo taking it. I mean, the Devils have Marty Brodeur, obviously, between the pipes, one of the greatest goalies of all time. Every time you watch him, you're watching a legend. But I can see the Islanders making a little upset in there because they have a lot of experience. I mean, Mike Sillinger, they've all been there before on that team. Rick DiPietro is obviously a great goalie. So I can definitely see the Islanders making a little bit of an upset on New Jersey in the first round of the playoffs if the rankings stay the way they are right now. But I kind of still see New Jersey coming out of there. I think New Jersey's better than Buffalo. They just have a lot of firepower, a lot of young players, Travis Zajac, Zach Parise, and I think they can make it out of the East.
Well, let's comment on that current ranking situation. Do you think that by the end of the season, New Jersey will overtake Buffalo for that number 1 seed in the East?
No, solely because New Jersey has one more game played than Buffalo, and I mean I think it's going to be like a 1-point race. It's going to be really close, but I think Buffalo is going to take that. But I think the Devils are going to face the Islanders in the first round, and I think the Devils can win that series.
All right, thanks a lot, Pat. We'll be back with more 30-minute drill right after this.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 30-minute drill. I'm your host of this segment, Matt Weinstein, along with my host, Jason Olephant. Now we're talking more college basketball once again. Now, a lot of teams got snubbed this tournament. Now, there's the Syracuse, there's Drexel, there's a lot of teams that got snubbed. Now, which teams do you think should be in that are not in?
Well, Matt, the teams that should be in that are in are definitely Syracuse, first of all. Syracuse actually finished ahead of Villanova in the Big East standings at 10-6, and Villanova, even though they were led by fabulous seniors Curtis Sumter and Mike Nardi, Syracuse should have got the edge, led by Demetrius Nichols and Eric Diebendorf. So I think Syracuse should have got in, Matt. And a second team that should have gotten into the NCAA tournament definitely has to be Air Force. Air Force at one time was ranked as high as number 15 in the nation and were 20-3 at one point. But the bad thing for them is that they finished 3-5 down the stretch, leading to a 23-8 record. But still, that's usually good enough to get into the NCAA tournament, Matt. So I don't know why Air Force wasn't in.
Yeah, I definitely agree with those two teams. Now, there are also a lot of first-round matchups, even without those teams, that are really interesting. Now, which 2 or 3 matchups interest you the most in the first round?
Well, Matt, I do have 2 matchups that interest me the most in the NCAA tournament. The first matchup I have to say is Marquette versus Michigan State, a battle of 2 of the premier guards in the NCAA. Drew Neitzel versus Dominique James, two of the best guards. Dominique James averaging a superb 18 points per game, and Drew Neitzel, we all know, a great three-point shooter from behind the arc. Now, another game that many insiders didn't talk about a lot that I'm going to mention is the number 3 ranked Texas A&M versus the 14th ranked Pennsylvania. This is a game versus an Ivy League team in Pennsylvania that likes to shoot the 3 ball well. I mean, Texas A&M likes to shoots good from the perimeter. So I think that this is a good matchup to watch.
Now we're talking a little bit about Duke now. Now Duke is usually up there in top 15 in the league in the entire country, and they're not. And they're usually the number one, number 2 seed. Now this year they're number 6 seed, which probably is the lowest in a while. Now what do you think about Duke? Think make any sort of a run this year in the tournament?
Well, I think Duke should make a run in the tournament. They're usually a number 1 seed, but as you mentioned, they're a 6 seed. They're facing a Virginia Commonwealth team that isn't as good. They're an 11 seed, so Duke shouldn't have a hard time facing Virginia Commonwealth. They're led by a great guard in Greg Paulus and Josh McRoberts. So even with the losses of Sheldon Williams and J.J. Redick, I think that Duke can make a run in the NCAA tournament.
Now we're talking about another team, Florida. The Florida Gators, last year's champion, now the football champion, obviously. Now, do you think they've got Jackson State in the first round, the number 1 seed? Do you think they can make to repeat as national champions once again?
Well, Matt, that's an interesting note. Actually, I do think that Florida can make a run to repeat as national champions. With the likes of Al Horford and Joakim Noah back, I think Florida can definitely make a push. They are facing the number 16 seed Jackson State. They're finished 21-13. Don't know much about them. They can be a streaky team at times, though. I know they can shoot the 3 ball well, and that when you're facing a number 1 team and the number 1 overall seed in this tournament in the Florida Gators, it's going to be a very hard task for Jackson State to take the upset and beat Florida.
All right, we've already heard mine and Aaron's Final Four predictions. Now, what do you got for the Final Four in the championship?
Well, Matt, my Final Four predictions are this. I like Georgetown. I like Georgetown because they have Jeff Green and Roy Hibbert, 2 fabulous players that led them all the way. They were first in the Big East overall this season, and I think they can make a push. Now, my other 3 teams, I like Memphis. Memphis is a run-and-gun team that can shoot the ball well. They take their time on their offensive possessions and can find the man down low, so I like Memphis. Also, I like Florida, of course. Florida, I like them to repeat actually as national champions. Like I said, when you have Al Horford and Joakim Noah coming back, Florida has a lot of star power. And my final team, I actually like Pittsburgh. With Aaron Gray, if Aaron Gray can get going in the Big East tournament, he didn't play too well, only averaged about 5 points per game in that tournament. But Matt, in the NCAA tournament, if they can feed the ball to Aaron Gray and he can get going, then Pittsburgh can be dangerous.
Now, you said you like Florida repeating. Who do you have against them in the championship game?
Well, I actually have Florida versus Georgetown in the championship game, which actually will be an interesting matchup. Because when you have Al Horford and Joakim Noah going against the 2 star powers of Georgetown and Jeff Green and Roy Hibbert, both combining for an average of 15 points per game, that's an interesting matchup to watch, and that'll be a great game to see as well.
All right, that's all we have for this segment. We'll be back with more 30-minute drill right after this.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the 30-minute drill. I'm your host, Aaron Ploshnick, along with my guest this segment, Jason Olephant. Nice to have you back after our first segment we didn't have you. But we're going to move on to the NBA, which I know is your favorite subject. And the team we're going to talk about is possibly your favorite team, the New York Knicks, who I really don't like that much, but we might as well talk about because they're an interesting team. Isaiah Thomas was given an ultimatum at the beginning of the season by James Dolan. Win or you're fired. And that really hasn't seemed to hold up because Isaiah Thomas got a contract extension the other day. What do you think about James Dolan's contract extension for Isaiah Thomas?
Well, Aaron, I don't know if I totally agree with this. The Knicks right now are 29-34. Definitely an improvement from last year's win total. They only had a total win total of 23 wins last season, which was absolutely horrendous. But to be 29-34 right now and actually currently be the number 8 seed in the Eastern Conference, I don't know, because it's not like the Knicks are over 500 or at 500, and it's not even the end of the season yet, so you can't tell what progress the Knicks really made. So I don't know if this is a good decision by James Dolan giving Isaiah the contract extension.
You know, I think you have to weigh both sides of the table here. I mean, one, they beat their win total of last season already, and we're not even done with the season yet. We're like literally just past the All-Star break. So that's a good thing for the Knicks in general as far as morale is concerned with the team. James Dolan has been known to be an eccentric owner. He took over his dad's company, and his dad gave him the Knicks. So he's been given everything, and people kind of underestimate James Dolan. So I think he feels Isaiah Thomas is kind of like him in the coaching realm. He's been a general manager for a long time, and I think he's going to give Isaiah Thomas the rightful coaching job that he deserves, because I think Isaiah Thomas with time can do a good job. Jay?
Also, the big thing, Aaron, in my mind, why James Dolan gave Isaiah Thomas a contract extension is that Isaiah Thomas has brought the best out of Eddie Curry this year. Eddie Curry, the resurgence of him, has brought the Knicks to where they are right now at 29-34. Eddie Curry is definitely the MVP of this team. He's averaging about 20 points per game, and also, you got to think about David Lee. David Lee, great player coming out of Miami, only in his second year, and he is performing great, averaging a double-double with 15 points per game and 12 rebounds. So he is definitely great. And also, don't forget Steve Francis, that once wanted to retire, hit the game-winning three-pointer the other night to make the Knicks 29-34. So Aaron, I think Isaiah is bringing the best out of all the Knicks players. They're playing for Isaiah, and that's another reason James Dolan probably gave him a contract extension.
All right. Let's cross the Hudson River right now and talk about the New York Knicks counterparts, the New Jersey Nets. Not doing as well as everyone predicted them to do. They are, I believe, currently 9th in the East, on the borderline of playoffs, not where they were at the beginning, with the Atlantic Division looking literally in shambles right now. What's going to happen for the Nets? Will they even make the playoffs this year?
Well, I actually don't know, Aaron. The Nets are 29-35. They beat the Memphis Grizzlies last night. They beat them by about 12 points, so that was good. But the big thing for the Nets, Aaron, is that they have the return now of their star forward, Richard Jefferson. Jefferson was out for about 35 games with that wrist injury, and now he's back. So now with the dynamic duo of Jason Kidd, Vince Carter, and Richard Jefferson, the Nets might be able to make a push, and they're only a half game out of those New York Knickerbockers, surprisingly. So maybe the Nets can make a push for the playoffs.
Yeah, the Nets still missing their key center, Nenad Kristaps. He's not in yet. But we're going to switch gears right now, move from NBA, the Knicks and the Nets. We're going to slide over to Major League Baseball. Back in spring training right now. Everything's good. Pitchers and catchers. Everything's nice. And then you have the Red Sox, who not many New York people are a fan of, especially if you're a Yankees fan like I am. And they have their new $103 million man, Daisuke Matsuzaka, over from Japan, and was less than stellar in his opening spring training event, giving up 6 runs. Will Daisuke be as good as everyone think he's going to be?
Well, I think Daisuke actually will be as good as everybody thinks he is. But I don't know about that gyro ball that everybody was saying about. I don't know what kind of pitch that is. But for Daisuke, I think that it's just spring training. He's a little nervous, converting from Japan to the major leagues. He's a little shaky in his first spring training starts, but he's getting the handle of it. And I think once it comes season time, and he's ready, I think he'll be ready to go. And with the trifecta of Josh Beckett, Kurt Schilling, and Daisuke Matsuzaka now, Boston can possibly have the best starting pitching rotation in the major leagues if Daisuke turns out to be as good as all the people think he will be.
I do agree with you, even though I hate to agree with you, that they do have one of the best 3-man rotations in Major League Baseball. Daisuke Matsuzaka has been known to have 7 different pitches in his repertoire, including that gyro ball, which many people do not know anything about. Supposedly, it's a mix of a slow ball, a knuckleball, and a curveball all in one, and it drops into the zone almost like a slider. So we'll see it during the season, but no one really knows where it comes from. Well, let's switch over from the Red Sox, who I really don't want to talk about anymore, to the New York Yankees. 8-2-1 this spring training. They got a new pitcher from Japan as well. His name is Keigawa. But their starting rotation is very thin until you get to their farm system, which has recently been boosted with, I believe his last name is Hughes. Phil Hughes is the name of the pitcher. What about the Yankees this year? You think they're ready to take on the Red Sox for the division lead?
Well, I think that the Yankees will win the division title again. They have a great offensive lineup, and also their starting pitchers, Mike Mussina, Carl Pavano, and Kiyagawa. We don't know much about him. He's coming from Japan as well. Maybe he might even be better than Matsuzaka. Might even be the best kept secret in all the signings over the offseason for the Yankees. So if Kiyagawa can be good and then have Mike Mussina and Carl Pavano, the Yankees can have a great starting rotation as well, Aaron.
Let us not forget that Roger Clemens still looms on the horizon, still deciding between three teams, the Houston Astros, Boston Red Sox, and the New York Yankees. And they signed Andy Pettitte over the offseason. What do you think about Andy Pettitte? Will he be like he used to be with those 96 to 2000 Yankees that won those 4 World Series?
Well, guess what, Aaron? The last season that Andy Pettitte was with the Yankees, he finished a fabulous 21-8. I remember he had a great season, made the All-Star game, actually might have won Cy Young actually that year. Andy Pettitte had a great season with the Yankees. He actually had a total of about 220 wins with the Yankees before he went to the Astros. So I think Andy Pettitte will be a great fit for the Yankees, and you'll see during this season.
Thank you, Jason. That's going to be it for this week of the 30-Minute Drill. I'm your host, Aaron Ploshnick, and we'll see you next week. Hello, welcome to the 30-Minute Drill. I'm your host of the segment, Aaron Ploshnick.
Jake Silverman.
And Matt Weinstein.
Dan Cohen. Host Michael Botwinick. He hasn't pitched a game since 2005.
I don't think they're going to go very far.
He is the best quarterback. His stats have proven it.
I think Florida can definitely make a push.
Was playing lights out for 20 minutes.
He's an unbelievable player. He's not even 20 years old.
Big offensive numbers from him.
Doing great in spring training.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 30-Minute Drill. I'm your charming host, Jake Silverman, along with my knowledgeable and insightful guest, Jason Olephant. Pleasure to have you. So let's talk about the Final Four matchups over this weekend. We had Ohio State and Georgetown. Ohio State beat them 67-60, with Greg Oden not being a real big factor in this game, had foul trouble early, was limited minutes, but also big man for Georgetown. Hibbert Jr. was also in foul trouble early. Jason, why do you think, this wasn't really the big center matchup. It came down to the guards. Why do you think Ohio State won it?
Well, Ohio State won because their front court play was just fabulous in this game. Mike Conley Jr., 15 points, 8 assists, and Ron Lewis, the X Factor who I mentioned on last week's edition of the 30-Minute Drill, 9 points, 3 for 7 from the field, 3 3-pointers, and Greg Oden, like you said, Jake, was in foul trouble a lot during this game. Roy Hibbert Jr. did a great job containing him on the defensive side of the ball for Georgetown, but it wasn't enough, and Ohio State prevailed.
Yeah, I have a question to you about Conley. Is Conley good because of Oden, or is Oden amazing because of Conley? Because they've been teammates ever since their childhood days. If you remember, Ohio State only signed Conley because Oden made them. When he committed to Thad Matta and the Ohio State University, he said you had to bring along Mike Conley Jr. Is one of the reasons Mike Conley is so great is because of Oden's inside presence?
Well, both of these players revolve around each other. Greg Oden, that big presence down low on the block for Ohio State, and Mike Conley Jr., one of those slashing guards that likes to drive to the basket a lot and score to the hoop. So they both revolve around each other. Mike Conley Jr. makes Oden better, and then during times Oden makes Conley Jr. better, because when Oden's double teamed on the block, he could just kick it out to Mike Conley Jr., and he knows that he can rely on him, and he could trust him to shoot that 3-ball well and sink that basket when it counts during the stretch of important games, Jake.
Yeah, they're really good. They're they're not exactly like a Malone and Stockton, because Stockton couldn't score, and they're nowhere near as good as, Malone or Stockton, but they kind of have that same chemistry playing together for so long. But Jason, now let's switch it up. We're going to talk about the UCLA-Florida game. In this game, Florida came in and absolutely had this game from the beginning and ended up winning 76-66 over UCLA. Florida now has the chance to become the first back-to-back champion in a long time. Do you think they can do this? And why do you think, well, first of all, why do you think they beat UCLA?
Well, I think they beat UCLA in a rematch of actually last year's national title game because Florida simply out-rebounded UCLA 42-25 on the boards. Al Horford, 17 rebounds, 9 points, and Joakim Noah, 11 rebounds. So when you have two big low presences like Horford and Noah down low, it was hard for UCLA to out-rebound Florida, and Corey Brewer, the high man for Florida, was flat out amazing from the field. 5 for 6 from the field, 19 points. So Jake, that's why Florida prevailed once again, like last year, over UCLA.
Do you believe that Florida, throughout their 2-year reign as the #1 team, I think the #1 team, even though rankings changed a little bit, do you think they've always had the best starting five? Because they will be the first team ever to go through, be back-to-back championships with the same starting five. Even though UCLA went through 11 straight, they always had maybe changing of the guards a little bit. Do you think this is the best starting five in the past 2 years?
Well, I actually can agree with you, Jake, that it is the best starting five. You know, you have Lee Humphrey, Torian Green, Al Horford, Joakim Noah. You just have Corey Brewer. It's just 5 fabulous starters that could all go pro next year in the 2007 NBA draft. So I think this can be the best starting lineup we have seen, especially for Florida, in the last 2 years, Jake.
Yeah, Lee Donovan's come in, done an absolute great job. Came in from Xavier. I mean, 2 NCAA tournament berths before that game, before he came. Ever since then, 9 straight, 2 Final Fours, 1 national championship, and a chance to make another one tonight. And even though this show is gonna air probably on Friday, we are taping today on Monday. Tuesday is the game. I mean, Monday's the game. Have a chance to make it tonight. But Jason, let's talk about this championship game for the last part of our segment. Florida, Ohio State. Rings a bell about championship games. Rematch of the BCS Bowl championship game. Who do you think's gonna win?
Well, in that BCS football game, Ohio State was highly favored in that game. Florida upset them, prevailed as the underdog. Now in this game, you probably will consider Ohio State the underdog, wanting to get revenge on Florida for that national championship game in football. But these two teams, Florida won every game by 7 points in this tournament, and then for Ohio State, they should have lost to Xavier in the second round, prevailed by 9 in overtime, and then against Tennessee, they only prevailed by 1. So I don't know. It's going to be a tough game, but I like Florida.
I have to agree with you. Florida again to go back to. I think they'll go back to back. They really showed a lot to me this tournament, and I do believe Florida's going to win. Well, Jason, thank you for sharing your insight on the championship game and the past March in this great tournament. March Madness is always a fun time to talk about sports. In our next segment, though, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be talking about the NBA and how the playoffs are shaping up. Will the Nets make it? Will the Knicks make it? We'll talk about that next on 30-Minute Drill.
This machine never works. Oh, hi. When there's breaking news, Mr. Hookster calls the 30-Minute Drill team immediately. Now, can I get my drink?
30-Minute Drill team, assemble.
It won't open, guys. Move. Let's pull.
Sometimes, hosting the 30-minute drill let the fame get to their head.
Where's Dan?
I don't know, man. Ever since he got the lead anchor job, he hasn't been on time.
Starting at host, standing at 5'5", 140 pounds, your Springer Karen and Scott, Daniel Adam Cohen.
Sometimes it even gets disturbing to the other anchors.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the 30-Minute Drill. Once again, I'm your host, Jake Silverman, along with Jason Olephant. We're going to switch things up a little bit differently this segment, do an in and out portion. I'm going to give you a team that's on the cusp of the playoffs or, in right now, but could slide out, and you'll tell me if they're in or out, all right? Let's start off with Denver, led by Carmelo Anthony and Allen Iverson. In or out?
Jake, out. The reason, they're losing 3 in a row. They're on a losing skid right now. AI and Carmelo Anthony, I truly don't believe that they could coexist with one another. So, Jake, I think they're out.
All right, in my personal opinion, I think they're in. I think soon they're going to mesh with Nene, and then they got Camby, Kenya Martin, if he ever gets healthy. I know it's probably not this year, but once they do, the whole team gets going, they're going to be really good. All right, next team, Golden State, number 9 seed right now, 1.5 games out. In or out for you?
Golden State, a team that's getting hot right now when it's crunch time right now to make the playoffs. They've won 2 in a row. Baron Davis and Jason Richardson clicking on all cylinders, and Don Nelson is telling that team, hey, we can make a push, and he believes in them. So, Jake, I think Golden State is in.
All right, process of elimination leads me to believe you think the LA Clippers are in. Jason, tell me why.
Well, I think the LA Clippers are in. Even though Sam Cassell is out indefinitely with a knee injury, I think that they're clicking on all cylinders. Corey Maggette, Sean Livingston, Elton Brand, of course, the MVP last year. I think the Clippers can make some noise, and they could be good in the playoffs.
Well, the MVP for the Clippers season last year, they elected him team MVP. I think that's what you were referring to.
What I was referring to.
Yeah, Sean Livingston out, though. I mean, he was a great player. I don't see them making a push for the playoffs this year. I believe Golden State's in ahead of them. The Clippers fall out, and that's your set Western Conference. So let's go to the East now. Talk about your team, the New York Knickerbockers. 10th seed right now, 2.5 games out, in or out. Let's see, Oli.
Well, unfortunately for me, I'm a diehard Knicks fan, Jake, but the Knicks are out. They're 2-8 in their last 10 games. They're not playing well. Too many injuries have nagged them this season. David Lee is out, Quentin Richardson out, and now Steve Francis is out. So those 3 main players that revolved around that Knicks winning streak when they were at the 8th seed at 30 and 36, they're all out. So this year, it's not the year for the Knicks. They're out, Jake.
Neither was like the past 5 years, but you know what? We'll let that go. I think with David Lee, Quentin Richardson, and Stephon Marbury's been playing lights out recently, they could have actually had a good push. So let's go to my team, the New Jersey Nets, 7th seed, 2.5 games in or out.
The Nets, Jake, are in to please you. I think the Nets are going to do well in the playoffs. They're clicking on all cylinders right now. Richard Jefferson has been playing great in his last 10 games, averaging about 25 points per game. Vince Carter, lights out, of course, and Jason Kidd. So those 3 are meshing well. So, Jake, the Nets are in, and don't be surprised if they can make some noise if they battle Cleveland in the first round.
Well, I believe they are in too. The Big 3 has come this year and has played well since Richard Jefferson has come back. It's unfortunate, though, they lost one of their key young players early in the season in Nene Christus, but Josh Boone really stepping up as of late and is shooting lights out. He went 10 for 10 one game, 8 for 10 the other game. I saw the Nets myself the other game. It really looked good, and Marcus Williams stepping up. Those UConn products are doing good in the NBA. Let's now talk about what's going to happen for the teams that are locked in for the NBA playoffs. Who's going to make some noise in the Western Conference for you?
Well, in the Western Conference for me, you have to look at the Utah Jazz, a team that started off the season great, then went on a little of a skid, but they're currently now the 4 seed at 48 and 25. Deron Williams leading that team, only in his 2nd year, and Mehmet Okur, a great forward. So I think Utah can make noise in the playoffs.
Yeah, Mehmet Okur, Deron Williams, great players. In Western Conference, so I actually think Houston could do really good. I mean, they got that great backup center, Dikembe Mutombo, in his old age, which could be 50 for all we know. He's playing lights out for 20 minutes. Whatever he plays, the short amount of time, he gives it his all, and he's doing really good. Yao Ming, MVP caliber season. That's my team to make noise in the Western Conference. Let's switch it up to the East. Who do you got?
Jake, I have the Toronto Raptors, a surprise team of the year. 41 and 32. Sam Mitchell is my choice to win Coach of the Year. TJ Ford, Andrea Bargnani, Chris Bosh. Those 3 are great. So, Jake, Toronto is going to make noise in the Eastern Conference.
Well, I actually think it's going to be Cleveland. Switching Larry Hughes to point guard was one of the best moves I've seen all year. One of the best defenders. I actually think he can guard anybody with his size and athleticism. Thanks for your thoughts. Right after this, we'll kick it up to our friends in Period 7, and they'll tell us a little bit what they think about this baseball season. We'll see you in a little bit right after this.
The Wayne Hills baseball team season has started. Under the leadership of head coach Ainello, the team looks to make a run for it in the Passaic County tournament and a spot in the New Jersey State tournament. The Wayne Hills baseball team has been practicing hard throughout the past year and is ready to strive for success. Seniors such as Jeff Brzezinski, Eric White, Dave Ogden, and Kevin Dunn are training the younger kids to step up to the plate and play at the varsity level. The Wayne Hills Video Club will be filming the game on May 14th against Pascack Valley. You can catch all the action on Channel 77 in the month of May and June.
Carlton, Marcin. Senior. Running back.
At the 5, touchdown.
Number 25.
35-yard, good deep by Marcin.
The drive for 5 begins September 7th, 2007. Be there. Dan DeSico. Senior. Running back. Number 20.
Yes, block. 20, 15, that's a great deep. He's got room, he's at the 5.
The drive for 5 begins September 7th, 2007. Be there. Mike Giampapa. Senior. Quarterback. Number 1. The drive for 5 begins September 7th, 2007. Be there. Jeremiah Kale. Senior. QB.
Play action. Goes up to Mike Hale's going to take it himself on a 2-play.
Number 2.
Down, pass it down to the left. He's up the sides at the 30, 35, 40, 40.
The drive for 5 begins September 7th, 2007. Be there.
Tim Waller. Senior. Middle linebacker. Number 4. The drive for 5 begins September 7th, 2007. Be there.
Hi and welcome back to 30-Minute Drill. Once again, I'm your host, Michael Botwinick, along with my guest, Travis Della Volpe. And today we're going to have our MLB Opening Day report. Now, Travis, a lot of teams spent a lot of money in free agency this year, especially the Chicago Cubs and the San Francisco Giants, signing big-name free agents such as Alfonso Soriano and Barry Zito. Which team's big spending spree will help them the most this year?
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you because the Cubs really made the most moves this offseason. First of all, they get Alfonso Soriano, one of the best hitters in the league, and he's still young. He can still play, and now he's playing the outfield, which is going to give them a lot of depth in that order, also in the outfield. Also, getting a new manager, Lou Piniella, he's really going to turn that face around, and hopefully the Cubs can get back into the playoffs.
Now, last year's World Series winners, the St. Louis Cardinals, they didn't have a great pitching staff, but their pitching staff was just enough to get them through, and their hitting carried them really through the entire playoffs and through the World Series. Do you think that their pitching will hold them back this year, or think they'll be able to win again?
You know what? I'm going to say they're not going to be able to win another World Series this year because there are other teams in the league, like the Mets and the Yankees. Those are the teams that you really think are going to make the World Series and possibly win it because they are just stacked on the offense and they have the pitching to back up.
Now, last year, the Detroit Tigers, they were a surprise team. They made it to the World Series. Not many people expected them to do well, but they really surprised a lot of people. Who's your surprise team this year?
You know, my surprise team is going to be the Toronto Blue Jays. I don't think that they're going to make the playoffs this year, but they are going to put forth a run through the middle of the year and really give them a chance to make the playoffs. because you know what? But there are other teams in that division, the Yankees and Red Sox. So you know what? Trying to get up into the playoffs isn't going to be possible.
Now, a lot of Japanese players have been imported this year, such as Akiwara Imagura from Devil Rays and Kaigawa from the Yankees and Daisuke Matsuzaka from the Red Sox. Which Japanese player do you think will make the biggest impact on his team this year?
You know, I'm going to have to say it's going to be Daisuke Matsuzaka from the Boston Red Sox because he's really going to be relied on by that team. You know, the Yankees, Kiyagawa, they can get away with him not pitching as well because of the other players they have on that roster. But Daisuke, he's really hoping to step in and be a main factor of that team.
Now, Alfonso Soriano, as you mentioned before, was signed to a very long contract, 10 years, which is one of the longest of all time. Soriano is known as one of the youngest, most promising players in the league. Do you think that he will continue his great stats with the Cubs?
You know, I think he will because, you know, just the numbers he's put up over the past, he really has been able to get it done. Also, you know, he's going to be the player for the Chicago Cubs. He's their #1 player on that team, and he's going to be looking to get it done.
Now, the New York Yankees are obviously a school favorite here. A lot of people like them. They've always been, for the last 10 years, they've really been dominating the American League East. Do you think that their dominance will continue this year?
Yes, it will definitely continue because, you know what, the Red Sox aren't as strong as they have been in the past. And the Yankees, their offense is just too powerful this year. I mean, you could pick out their #9 hitter this year was an all-star player in Robinson Cano. So, you know what, if that strength up and down the order and their pitching staff, you know, getting Andy Pettitte back and, you know, once their pitchers are healthy, they're going to be up top again.
Now, speaking of the Yankees, they made a lot of moves this offseason, dealing a lot of veterans such as Gary Sheffield and Randy Johnson. Do you think that the loss of these veterans will help them or hurt them this year?
I'm going to say definitely it's going to help them because Randy Johnson, you know, his injuries and just his old age really hurt the Yankees last year. They really got to look for to get into the future and get the young prospects up. But Gary Sheffield, you know, he was a good player too, but like his attitude with the Yankees and with Joe Torre, it really wasn't working out. So, you know, I think dealing them was a good move.
Now, Alex Rodriguez has really been the center of a lot of skepticism this year. He's really been hammered in the media and stuff, and it's really getting to him. Do you think this year, after getting all that stuff off his chest, do you think that he'll be able to have a year like he has before he was with the Yankees?
You know what, I'm going to say this year is going to be his breakout year in New York. I mean, he's had a couple years to adjust to the New York pressure, to the media. I'm going to say this year he's going to be able to get it done for the Yankees and lead him into the World Series, and you know what, I think he's going to win another MVP.
Sticking with the Yankees here, they've had a lot of injuries on pitching already, such as Chim-Ming Wang. Carl Pavano is always injured, so you never know when that's going to happen, but he seems to be healthy this year. Do you think that the Yankees' injuries on pitching will really hurt them this season?
You know, it's like I said before, it's not going to really hurt them at all because their offense is so good this year. They're probably going to score over 1,000 runs this year, which is, well, you know, that's a lot of runs when you think about it. But their pitching, they'll be able to get it done. Their bullpen, and they also have one of the best closers in baseball, Mariano Rivera.
Now to conclude, Travis, we're going to go with who is your early World Series pick?
You know, I'm going to say another Subway Series with the Yankees and Mets because they are the two best teams in each of their respectable divisions. Yankees pitching and hitting is just amazing, and you know what, the Mets, they're really coming along with their young players and Jose Reyes and David Wright, so I'm going to say both those teams are going to get it done.
Thank you, Travis. I'll be back with more 30-minute drill right after this.
Ever since we started 30-minute drill, security's been a major problem.
The security stinks.
I think we found a solution for this problem.
Hey, Brian.
What's going on, John? Let me see your pass. Okay, you can go through.
See you, man.
Oh, man, 5 minutes.
Botwinick, you got a pass?
Nah, I lost that pass in the hall. Come on, B-Ross. Welcome back to the 30-minute drill.
I deny you entrance.
Oh, snap.
After a 30-minute drill, once again, I'm your host, Michael Botwinick, along with my guest, Dan Cohen, and today we're going to be talking about the NCAA championship game. Now, Dan, Florida obviously came away with the win. Greg Oden had a great game, but it just wasn't enough to help Ohio State. What do you think was the key to Florida's victory today?
Well, for Ohio State, they had one star shine, and that was Greg Oden. On the other hand, Florida, they had a whole bunch of stars shine. They had Corey Brewer, Al Horford, Torian Green. Joakim Noah didn't have a great game, but he was still fine. I think the key was the three-point shooting. They were stellar from beyond the arc. They were 6 of 9 in the first half. That's 66%. That's extremely good. I think that was the key to the game.
Now, obviously, Florida's three-point shooting a big part of this game. But do you think that the three-point shooting, obviously, whenever Ohio State got close in the lead, Florida would hit a big three and keep them away from the lead. Do you think that this hurt their team mentally?
I think it did, because you know what? These are young kids. There's a lot of freshmen on that Ohio State team. So when you see the other team go down the court almost every time and knock down a three, it's gonna take a mental torment on you, and you're gonna think that you don't have a chance, that you're gonna hit a two, every time down, and the other team's gonna hit a three, and you just can't trade baskets because you'll never catch up. So I think that really did hurt Ohio State mentally.
Now Florida has a great group of returning players. They're the first team to ever have win a championship twice in a row with the same starting five. It's amazing how players in this day and age usually go out of the draft early, but these teams really stuck together. Do you think this is important to their win?
Oh, I think it's very important to that win, because you know what? The experienced guys on Florida, they defeated the inexperienced freshmen on Ohio State. Ohio State really only has that one senior guard in Butler, so they're a really young team, and Florida really pulled it out.
Now, Joakim Noah, he really didn't play great today, but he played enough to get them to the win. What do you think was Ohio State's key to slowing down Joakim Noah and keeping him from playing his greatest game?
Well, that had to be Greg Oden. Greg Oden's presence obviously shut down Joakim Noah, but that wasn't enough for Ohio State. Joakim Noah is not the only star on that Florida team. They have plenty of other stars. Corey Brewer came out and had an awesome game. Same thing with Al Horford and Torian Green. And Lee Humphrey had a couple three-point shots that really put the nail in the coffin. So I think that's why Florida took it.
Now, speaking of Corey Brewer, he had a great game offensively, but really where he excelled the most was in defense. He really played a great game against Mike Conley Jr., who was expected to be a great presence, but he didn't play great today, thanks to Corey Brewer's defense. How important do you think this was to Florida's win?
Oh, it's very important. They got those 2 fouls early on Conley. I think that really hurt Ohio State, because Conley's been the one that's been, you can make a case for Oden, but I think Conley's the one that's carried this team as far as they've gone. In these major comebacks, I think it's all about Conley. He's the guy that carries the ball. He quarterbacks the offense. It all starts with him. So Corey Brewer shutting him down was huge. Not to mention Corey Brewer was also stellar on offense.
Now, moving ahead a little bit from this championship game, both off seasons look to be very interesting for both Florida and Ohio State. With Florida, you never know. We have a lot of good players. You never know who's going to leave for the NBA draft. But the biggest question mark right now is their coach, Billy Donovan. He's been getting a lot of looks from a lot of different colleges, and there's even been some talk of him going to the NBA. Do you think that he'll stick with Florida or coach some other team next year?
Well, in my opinion, if he's not going to the NBA, I don't see any reason why he would leave Florida. If he won 2 consecutive national championships, it makes no sense to me why he would leave. And I think that Florida may get hurt a little bit by graduation, but now that they've won these 2 national championships in a row, it's going to attract, high recruits to come to Florida. Maybe guys that didn't want to go to Florida before because when Florida was struggling, they only made their first tournament in 1987, 89, I'm not sure which, but so they were a relatively young, successful team. Players are now going to want to go to Florida, and they're going to have a successful dynasty for a while now. So I don't see any reason why Billy Donovan would leave.
And then moving on to Ohio State, they have 2 great freshmen, obviously Mike Conley Jr. and Greg Oden. Do you think that either or both of them will bolt to the NBA this year?
Well, Greg Oden's a lock. I think that right out, I think he would have gone to the NBA unless that that rule was installed where they have to play at least 1 year of college ball, or else he would have went straight to the NBA. So I think it's definitely a lock that he's going to go to the NBA. I think Conley should stay in college basketball. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I think Conley is also going to go to the NBA. I think that such a great year he had. I think a lot of NBA teams they would love to have him on their franchise. In my opinion, I think Conley should stay. I think he should get a little more experience, because you know what they say, you don't learn in the NBA, you learn in college basketball. I think he should stay. I'm not sure that's going to be the case, though.
Now, Mike Conley, he's considered one of the best point guards in the league. Do you think that a team needing a point guard such as the New York Knicks would really look at Mike Conley Jr. as a high draft pick?
If I was an NBA team and I wanted a point guard, I wouldn't go for a freshman point guard right out of college because he's going to be inexperienced. I would want my point guard coming out of college to have at least 2 years or under his belt, preferably 3 or 4. So, because he's bound to make mistakes, and he's he's going to be so far behind the learning curve in the NBA. I think that he really needs to get the experience in college basketball. So when he is drafted, he'll be at the same level as those guys.
Now, Joakim Noah, as we mentioned before, did not have a great game. Before this game, he was expected to go in the early first round, maybe even top 10. Do you think that this game hurt his draft stock at all?
I don't think this game hurt his draft stock at all. I think his stock was set way before this game came in. I think if he left for the NBA last year, he would have been a high draft pick. I don't think this is going to affect him at all. I'm just happy that he stayed. That's great for the face of college basketball to see this, a star say that, you know what, I can stay in the college basketball and I can go into the NBA the following year and I can help my team. And he did. He won another national championship for his college basketball team. So I don't think his stock's going to go down at all. I think the NBA teams know what he can do, and this is not going to affect him at all.
Thank you, Dan. I'll be back with more 30-minute drill next week.
This is why I'm hot. This is why I'm hot. This is why I'm hot. I'm hot cause I'm fly. You ain't cause you not. This is why I'm hot. I'm hot cause I'm fly. You ain't cause you not. This is why I'm hot.
Welcome to the 30-minute drill. I'm your host of the segment, Aaron Ploshnick.
Jake Silverman.
And Matt Weinstein.
Dan Cohen.
Host Michael Botwinick. He hasn't pitched a game since 2005.
I don't think they're going to go very far.
He is the best quarterback. His stats have proven it.
I think Florida can definitely make a push.
Was playing lights out for 20 minutes.
He's an unbelievable player. He's not even 20 years old.
Big offensive numbers from him.
Doing great in spring training.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 30-minute drill. I'm your host, Jake Silverman, along with my guest this week, Jason Olephant. We're going to talk about opening day on the MLB, how the Mets and Yankees are doing, some surprises, and we'll play a little good cop, bad cop for you this show. Let's start off talking about the Mets. Jason, this week, opening series, the Mets really started off great. They came out to, I believe, 3-0 or 4-0 start, finally lost 2 games in a row, but Jose Reyes was great, right off the bat, hit 2 triples in one game. It was amazing. Carlos Beltran getting a lot of RBIs in the series against the Cardinals. What did you see out of the Mets?
Well, out of the Mets, the thing that impresses me the most is their starting pitchers. John Maine gave up no earned runs. Oliver Perez, lights out, 7 innings. Tom Glavine, opening day and in his second start, looked phenomenal. So, Jake, the thing that's impressing me about the Mets has to be their starting pitching, and definitely, like you said, their bats are alive. Jose Reyes, Carlos Beltran. So the Mets are looking good so far to start off this 2007 season.
Yeah, altogether the Mets have only allowed 11 runs so far. They're doing absolutely great. Starting pitching, which was thought to be a problem, really has stepped up, and they're doing great in the absence of superstars and, Pedro being out. Let's switch it up, go across town now to the Yankees, the Bronx Bombers. A-Rod finally coming out of his shell. Hit a game-winning grand slam the other day. What have you thought about the Yankees and A-Rod so far?
Well, A-Rod definitely has impressed me. 3 home runs so far and 10 RBIs through only 6 games. He's scorching hot, has a hot bat. But the problem for the Yankees this season so far has been their starting rotation. Kiyagawa out of Japan didn't look too impressive. He gave up 6 runs in his first start. And then Mike Messina, he is not looking too good. So the problem for the Yankees is going to be starting pitching this year, like the last couple of years. So, Jake, that's the problem, and I think the Yankees are doing decent at 2-3 so far this season.
I can't even really say that because, their pitching hasn't even gotten past the 5th inning. They had to bring Andy Pettitte in as relief. That's only the 8th time in his career, and on short rest, they're really going to wear out the arms in the bullpen, working extra innings. The starters, they have to get to at least the 7th. They want any chance, late in the season to come through play a big role in the postseason like they have in years past.
I know, Jake, you can't blame this for their poor record at 2-3, but also the weather conditions haven't been too good at Yankee Stadium. One game, Andy Pettitte pitching, it was snowing for him like in 1996 when he had his start, and it's just been frigid temperatures, below 30 degrees there. So that can be a factor, but you don't want to blame it on the weather, but it could be a factor for their 2-3 record.
Yeah, everyone was bundled up in their little parkers and such. Anyway, parkas, not parkers. We'll go up, and now let's play good cop, bad cop. I'll be the bad cop, you could be the good cop. Talk about a team right now that you like and you see doing good things so far this season.
Well, the team that I like, Jake, has to be the Cleveland Indians. They're 4-2. Grady Sizemore, Johnny Peralta, Travis Hafner, and also the veteran leadership that they added over the offseason of Trot Nixon and David DeLucci, and their pitching staff, CC Sabathia, leading them. I think the Cleveland Indians can definitely make a run, and their bullpen has been lights out so far, so I think Cleveland can have a good season.
Well, again, those players are great, but inexperience is always shown that it can't carry you that far. I mean, I know Florida's done it sometimes, but Cleveland, like last year, they're average at best, the way they play. CC Sabathia has the stuff to become an ace, maybe a Cy Young winner, but he's overweight and always has injury problems, and that's the reason I don't see them, carrying on and maybe going to the way they can play. And also, I mean, Peralta is last year was good, but isn't playing his best. And I think sometimes when you don't play your best, and the way that other people around him, he's looked at as a leader, won't step up to play their best either. That's the reason I don't see Cleveland doing good at, and maybe not even making the playoffs this season. All right, now I know you like some players who are starting out good. Who do you like so far this season?
Well, a player on the Tampa Bay Devil Rays has really caught my eye. Elijah Dukes, a rookie. He's only 23 years old, already has 3 home runs. So for the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, I like Elijah Dukes. And then for the Pittsburgh Pirates, a starting pitcher that has caught my eye is Ian Snell. Had 11 strikeouts in his first start. Looked impressive. So, Jake, those are 2 players that have caught my eye.
All right. Thank you, Jason, for your thoughts. We'll be back with some NBA preview right after this.
Ever since we started a 30-minute drill, security's been a major problem.
The security stinks.
I think we found a solution for this problem.
Hey, Brian.
What's going on, John? Let me see your pass. Okay, you can go through.
See you, man.
Oh man, 5 minutes.
Botwinick, you got a pass?
Nah, I lost that pass in the hole. Come on, B-Ross.
Welcome back to the 30-minute drill.
I deny you entrance.
Oh snap.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 30-Minute Drill. I'm your host, Aaron Ploshnick, and I have to say it's great to be back. I'm with my guest this segment, Jason Olephant, and we're going to talk about the Mets and the Yankees. Now, the Mets have been making a push on the Yankees as of the later years, and a lot of people are giving the Mets a little more credit than myself and you think they deserve because we're loyal Yankee fans. But to give the Mets a valid arguing point, we're going to go ahead and compare positions between the Mets and the Yankees and see who's going to be better for this season. Let's start with the pitching rotation. Who do you think has got the better rotation?
Well, Aaron, in my mind, I think you have to consider the Yankees the better pitching staff. You know, you have Carl Pavano, Shimei Wong, who's on the disabled list currently, and then you got the veteran Andy Pettitte coming back from the Houston Astros, was a great Yankee back in the day, and now he's back with his former team. So you got to look at the starting pitching. And when it comes to veterans, they have 2 of them. Carl Pavano coming off that shoulder surgery last season, and now you got Pettitte. And once Shimei Wong comes back, they'll have the big 3. So, Aaron, I think the Yankees have the better pitching staff.
You know what? Pavano has been very injury-prone over his career, and I think that's what hurts the Yankees right now. They put him in as their opening day starter, and he didn't do too well, even though the Yankees got the win. But as far as this argument is concerned, I think you have to give this one to the Mets. They have Tom Glavine, who's been a proven pitcher, probably going to get his 300th win this season. They have Orlando Hernandez, who used to pitch for the Yankees, and he's been doing pretty well, showed a nice push in the playoffs. They have John Maine, who was phenomenal last year in the playoffs and is continuing to do well this season. So I can't see going against the Mets in this situation. So point goes to the Mets for me for pitching staff. Let's move on to the catching position. Now, I feel that you have to give this one to Posada, because he's been proven. He's been there for, I believe, 3 out of the 4 World Series that the Yankees won. He's been solid the whole time. He's a good catcher. His throw-out percentage is pretty decent. He's good with the bat. So, I mean, Posada's the one I have to choose. Do you agree or disagree?
Well, Aaron, I'll have to disagree with you on that one. Paul Duca is consistent when it comes to hitting. He hits for average, and his throwing percentage is even better than Jorge Posada's. He threw out a great percentage of runners last season. So, Aaron, I have to go with Paul Duca on this one.
All right, so that's 1 point for the Mets, 1 point for the Yankees for me, 1 point for the Mets, 1 point for the Yankees for you. So we are going to move on to the first base / DH position. For the Yankees, Jason Giambi. For the Mets, Carlos Delgado. Either way you go, you can't lose. But what do you think?
Well, I have to go with Jason Giambi on this one because I think Carlos Delgado's career is slowly dwindling. Last season, he was off to a slow start. This season, off to a slow start yet again. And Giambi is hitting for power. He's hitting for RBIs. So I like Giambi over Delgado.
I have to agree with you in this situation. Delgado is a strong hitter, and he's had a great career with Toronto and the Expos and the Mets. But Giambi's just been so proven. He's just such a power hitter. He's feared by so many pitchers when he steps to the plate. He's a left-handed batter, which is even more fearful. And that Yankee Stadium left field porch is just, it's God's home for him. He's just so good when it comes to that porch. And he's been there for the Yankees when they need him. And with this whole Corey Lytle thing and them being close, I just think that Giambi's going to have an even better year just for his friend Corey Lytle. But now we're going to move on to the second base position. And this is a toss-up between good offense and good defense. You have Valentin for the Mets, and you have Cano for the Yankees. What do you think?
Well, I have to take Robinson Cano here. It's only his second full year. He almost won the batting title in his first full season last year. So I have to take Robinson Cano. He's a great fielder, turns the double play well with Derek Jeter at shortstop, and he hits well, so I like Robbie Cano.
You know what? Cano has a lot of upside, and he has a great future ahead of him, but I think right now the better player is Valentin. Valentin's much more experienced. Valentin is a much better fielder than Cano right now. And even though he doesn't hit as well, he can get key hits in situations. He's a good singles hitter, which is normally what baseball is all about, getting singles. And I feel that he's more integral to the defensive part of the Mets, which makes their infield so dominant and so feared. So I have to give this one to Valentin. We're going to move on to that shortstop position, which I know you and I have both been dreading to talk about. We have Derek Jeter, phenomenal player, captain of the Yankees, 4-time World Series champion, should have won the MVP last year. And then you have the huge upside of Jose Reyes, so fast around the bases, leadoff hitter for the Mets. Who do you go with?
Well, this is a tough one here, Aaron. It's highly debated over many insiders, but you know what? I have to go with Derek Jeter. He's just too clutch in the playoffs, great fielding percentage, hits for average, hits home runs, hits for RBIs. Like you said, should have won MVP last season, but unfortunately he didn't, lost to Justin Morneau. But here, I have to take Jeter with the experience and veteran leadership over Jose Reyes.
I have to agree with you. Derek Jeter is the captain of the Yankees. He's the heart and soul of them. He gets key hits for them. He's one of the most clutch players in baseball, and I can't see how you argue against Jeter. All right, we're running a little bit short on time here, so we're going to rush these last two. Third base, David Wright, Alex Rodriguez. Almost the same exact situation as you have at shortstop. You got a young gun who's coming in, and you got the proven veteran. Who do you take?
A-Rod, the reason, even though he hasn't been clutch in the playoffs, off to a quick start this season, 5 home runs, 14 RBI. So, Aaron, I have to go with Alex Rodriguez.
I'm going to agree with you here. Alex Rodriguez, even though Yankees fans have been giving him a lot of crud, I can't see you voting against A-Rod here. And I have a feeling he will probably hit for 50 home runs this year and challenge Ryan Howard for the home run lead in Interleague. Outfield, Mets, Yankees, who do you take?
I have to go with the Mets. The reason, Beltran has a stronger arm in center than Damon, and I like Lou and Green, so I like the Mets over the Yankees outfield.
I'm going to have to take the Yankees outfield simply because Bobby Abreu has been phenomenal in the ever since he's been traded from the Phillies. And I think once Matsui comes back, that outfield's going to be so dominant. All right, that's going to do it for us. We'll be back with more 30-Minute Drill right after this.
Sometimes, hosting the 30-minute drill let the fame get to their head.
Where's Dan? I don't know, man. Ever since he got the lead anchor job, he hasn't been on time.
Starting at host, standing at 5'5", 140 pounds, your Springer Karen and Scott, Daniel Adam Cohen.
Sometimes it even gets disturbing to the other anchors. Welcome back to the 30-minute drill. Once again, I'm your host, Michael Botwinick, along with my guest, Dan Cohen. And today we're going to be talking about the Masters tournament. Now, obviously, Zach Johnson is the winner. He's a virtually unknown player here at the tour. Did you even expect him to make the cut?
Well, I couldn't have expected him to really do anything. Maybe he'd make the cut since, the cut wasn't very hard to make since it was about +8. But Zach Johnson had one career PGA Tour win coming into this. He had a little minor event he won in Atlanta. And it's amazing that a guy can win the Masters coming off, an unknown career and get this green jacket. So there's no way that anyone could have expected this. So it's just incredible for a guy like that to do it. It's probably the best performance since maybe Larry Mize did that, where he became an unknown.
Now, a lot of the major players missed the cut in this tournament, such as Sergio Garcia and Ernie Els. Do you think this is good for the tournament or bad for the tournament?
I think honestly it was bad for the tournament. I think that for the tournament, the big guys should always be in it, and I think a tournament would be really good if you have all the big guys, going towards the end, and maybe there's some a tiebreaker or 18th hole dramatic thing or something amazing on Amen Corner. But with these big guys not even making the cut, they're not even playing on Saturday and Sunday, and it really takes a lot out of the tournament because it's just there's not as much pressure. The big guys aren't there.
Now, speaking of the big guys, obviously the biggest name in golf is Tiger Woods. Everyone expects him to always be in it, and he really wasn't in it in the first couple of rounds. But in the last round, he really turned it on and almost won. What do you think about Tiger's comeback performance?
It was good, but it wasn't enough. I think Tiger, he had some problems with the driver, and I think it was intelligent of him to put the driver in the bag and move to the 3-wood. I think that gave him some success. So I think overall, I didn't see that look in Tiger's eyes when he really has it. He didn't sink any long putts when usually Tiger's on and he's going to make some heroics. He'll make a long putt and there'll be a huge fist pump or something like that. There was none of that. He was making short putts, but he wasn't sinking those long putts.
Now, speaking of Tiger, probably his biggest blunder during the Masters was deciding not to lay up on 15 and go for the green. This is probably a desperation attempt to finish out the tournament, but he landed it in the water and it probably lost him quite a bit of confidence. Do you think this was a bad decision to not lay up in 15?
I think he should have went for it. I think that the choice to go for the green in 2 and possibly get himself an eagle chance, I think that was the right decision, and I say that because he's Tiger Woods. He's really not playing for the money. He's just playing for the jacket and the records. He doesn't need the money, so he can take a risk like that. In hindsight, he might have wanted to lay up because he couldn't have known that Zach Johnson was going to bogey and then Justin Rose was going to bogey the last 2 holes. So Tiger Woods probably, looking back, probably saying, I should have laid up, I probably should have went for the birdie, and it would have put me into a better position where I only had a birdie one of the last 2 holes to go into to tie it up. But at the point he was at his point, I definitely think it was the right choice to go for the green in 2. It didn't work out as well, but if he was to eagle, he'd put a lot of pressure on Zach Johnson, make his knees shake, and I think that it was the right choice for Tiger, just not at the right time.
Now, Phil Mickelson, a couple of months ago, he was just tearing up the entire tour. He was just about to win the U.S. Open, and then, of course, he really hooked his drive into the hospitality tent. And ever since then, he's been just terrible. He barely made the cut in this tournament and didn't have a great showing. Do you think that U.S. Open is really affecting him still?
I don't see any correlation here. I don't think that the U.S. Open is affecting him. I know that after the tournament was over, an interviewer asked him, is this similar to your U.S. Open choke? And he said this really isn't the same. He didn't really see the correlation. He made sure that he said that the U.S. Open courses, they make it much more tougher. And although the conditions were hard, there's no rough like the U.S. Open rough. And he said that he was really confused by people trying to connect those things because you have to remember that Phil Mickelson, although he choked in that U.S. Open, he still has won a couple tournaments since then. He's still been doing fine. I don't think this has anything to do with the U.S. Open. I don't think it's going to affect his career at all, and I think it'll just play out normally for him.
Now, some of the young players, such as Rose, Wetteridge, Taylor, and Johnson, they're virtually unknowns coming into this tournament, and they're probably known as the future of the tour. Do you think that they'll be able to carry out the tradition the bar that's been set by Tiger, Els, Singh, all them?
I think now we're finally starting to see maybe a shift, and we're getting in this new era of golfers. You can call them, the bomb and gougers. They're these kids that are coming in. They're strong. They're just killing the ball off the tee, and they're doing really well. You mentioned Rose. He's a young British guy. He's really successful right now. He's playing a lot overseas in the European Tour, and once he starts playing some more PGA Tour events, I think he's going to start winning. 2 other young guys that didn't play up to their expectations in the Masters, Adam Scott and Henrik Stenson. They're still both very good golfers, and we expect to see a lot more from them And there's the 3 young American guns, Brett Wetterick, Vaughn Taylor, and Zach Johnson. Obviously, Zach Johnson won the Masters, and we know these 3 guys are good because they were on the U.S. Ryder Cup team this past year, and to get on that team, they beat out some, perennial Ryder Cup players like Davis Love. So they're the real deal.
Now, just to finish up here, the next upcoming big tournament is the Players Tournament at Sawgrass. Who do you think will win that?
It's definitely up for grabs. There's really no way to know. TBC Sawgrass is an extremely hard course. If you ask any player, they'll say it's one of the hardest courses out there. I'm going to give, there's really no way to know. Tiger Woods, he's the kind of guy that you can always take that safe guess and say, I think Tiger Woods is going to win it. But my guy this year is CH3, Charles Howell III. He's absolutely on fire. He's atop the FedEx Cup standings. He's had top 2 finishes in a whole couple events so far this year. So CH3, Charles Howell III, he's my guy.
Thank you, Dan. We're back in more 30-minute drill right after this.
The Wayne Hills baseball team season has started. Under the leadership of head coach Ainello, the team looks to make a run for it in the Passaic County Tournament and a spot in the New Jersey State Tournament. The Wayne Hills baseball team has been practicing hard throughout the past year and is ready to strive for success. Seniors such as Jeff Brzezinski, Eric White, Dave Ogden, and Kevin Dunn are training the younger kids to step up to the plate and play at the varsity level. The Wayne Hills Video Club will be filming the game on May 14th against Pascack Valley. You can catch all the action on Channel 77 in the month of May and June. The Wayne Hills boys volleyball team is getting ready to go into battle against the Passaic Valley Hornets, led by senior Justin Troy and star junior Andrew Gross. The Wayne Hills Video Club will be catching all the action, so check out the game on Channel 77, airing all of April.
This machine never works. Oh, hi. When there's breaking news, Mr. Hookshit calls the 30-minute drill team immediately. Now, can I get my drink?
30-minute drill team, assemble.
And we're open, guys. Move. Let's pull.
Welcome back to the 30-minute drill. Once again, I'm your host, Carlton Marcin, here with my guest, Michael Botwinick. Today, we're going to be talking about the draft. All right, Mike. First pick, we got the Raiders. Who do you think they'll take?
Well, I'm think they're going to take Jamarcus Russell, a quarterback from LSU. I mean, he's very mature. He did good in the Sugar Bowl. He led a top 20 team. I think that he'll be a good pick. He's very athletic and very big for a quarterback. He reminds you somewhat of a healthy Dante Culpepper. I think he'll turn out to be a great pick for the Raiders.
All right, what defensive player will have the biggest influence on this year's draft?
Well, I'm going to have to say Jamal Anderson, the defensive end from Arkansas. He really had a great combine, and a lot of teams are looking to take him early. I think he might be able to fall to the Redskins at pick number 6, and I think they'd be glad to take him.
All right, who will be this year's sleeper pick?
Well, I'm going to say wide receiver from Southern Carolina. I'm going to say Andre Allison. I mean, he ran a 4.40. He looked great in the combine. He had a touchdown in the Senior Bowl. And not a lot of people are considering him to be a great player since he didn't go to a great college, but he had a great combine. He really outshined a lot of receivers, and I think he's going to have a great career in the NFL.
All right, who will be this year's most explosive offensive player?
I'm going to go with Calvin Johnson, a wide receiver from Georgia Tech. He really had a great combine. He ran a 4.440 in somebody else's shoes. I mean, that's just phenomenal. I mean, he's going to have a great career in the NFL. He probably is the most talented player in this year's draft overall.
Yeah, I mean, running 4.4 in somebody else's shoes. I mean, that's just impressive. All right, we got Greg Olsen this year. Where do you think he'll go?
Well, I think he's going to follow the Jets. They really need some tight end. They really have a problem with tight end for the past few years. And they're really a kind of offense that could use a tight end very well. Chad Pennington's the kind of quarterback that would really like to roll out and find a tight end streaking around. Olsen's a good blocker, and I think he'll fit in very well with the Jets' offense.
Who would be the biggest impact on this year's special teams?
Well, I'm going to say wide receiver / kick returner, Yeaman Figures. He ran a 4.340. I mean, that's just great. He's a speedster. He runs down the field. He's a very good tackler. I think he'll really be a force to be reckoned with in the special teams.
All right, now we got the New York Giants. I mean, obviously, they can pick either way, any position. Who do you think they'll pick first?
Well, I think I'm going to go with linebacker. I mean, they released LeVar Arrington this year. They really have a need there, and I think a great fit with them would be linebacker from Penn State, Paul Ploshnick. He really is a great leader. He's very strong and very football smart. I think that he'll fit great with the Giants, and he's a very disciplined player, which also Coach Tom Coughlin would enjoy.
All right, now, flipping on the other hand, the New York Jets. I mean, obviously, you talked about them taking Greg first round, but who do you think they'll pick?
I think they will take Olsen. I mean, he's a very explosive player, and I think he'll fit in well with their offense. But if he's not there, I think they're going to have to look at a defensive end such as Quentin Moses. I mean, when they first started talking about the draft, he was expected to go in the top 10, but he's fallen off a little bit due to work ethic questions. But he's trying his best to address that, and I think he'll have a pretty good NFL career.
All right, who do you think is the most overrated player in the draft this year?
Well, I'm going to say defensive tackle Alan Branch from Michigan. He really has not worked out well. He had a very good college career, but you always look at that as a system. Michigan and a very good coach. I don't know. He really hasn't shown me much in the workouts or the combine. He always has problems about his character and work ethic. So I don't know. He has a lot of question marks about him going into the NFL draft.
All right. After all the guys we talked about just now, who do you think will be next year's Rookie of the Year?
Well, I'm gonna have to say Calvin Johnson. He has such a great package of skills. He can leap for a ball, run past receivers. He runs great routes, cut great. I mean, he's such an amazing threat. You can really use him even as a tight end because he has such great size. He's just so versatile and such a great player that I think he'll really have a tremendous NFL career. He reminds me a lot of Randy Moss.
All right. Now, who do you think will be this year's Defensive Rookie of the Year?
You know what? I'm going to say Paul Ploshnick I think he'll be drafted by the Giants, the linebacker from Penn State. He has great skills, great strength, very good football smarts, and I think he'll be able to really show a lot of people in the NFL what he's made of.
All right. Out of all these guys we talked about, obviously talked about a lot, who is this year's leader in the draft?
Well, I'm going to say the biggest leader in this year's draft is Brady Quinn. I mean, he led a very motivated Notre Dame team to a great season behind Charlie Weiss, and he's really shown a lot of people here his work ethic when he wasn't supposed to work out at the combine, but a lot of people were saying how his stock is dropping, and he wanted to show everybody that he was still in shape, so he did the bench press and benched almost as much as the average defensive end, which is just amazing for a quarterback. I think he has great heart and great courage, and I think he'll be a very good leader in the NFL.
All right, thank you, Mike. Once again, I'm your host, Carlton Marcin, here with my guest, Michael Botwinick, and we'll be back with more 30-minute drill next week.
Hello, welcome to the 30-minute drill. I'm your host of the segment, Aaron Ploshnick.
Jake Silverman.
And Matt Weinstein.
Dan Cohen.
Host Michael Botwinick. He hasn't pitched a game since 2005.
I don't think they're going to go very far.
He is the best quarterback. His stats have proven it.
I think Florida can definitely make a push.
Was playing lights out for 20 minutes.
He's an unbelievable player. He's not even 20 years old.
Big offensive numbers from him.
Doing great in spring training.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a very special edition of 30-Minute Drill. I'm your host, Jake Silverman, along with coach of the defending three-time state champs and member of the exclusive 200-win club. That's right, I'm talking about the one, the only Coach Olson. Coach, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks, Jake. Thanks for having me this morning.
No problem. All right, Coach, we know the draft's just around the corner, and your son Greg's projected to go high in the first round. What's it been like these past few weeks for you and your family?
I'll tell you what, it's been a lot of fun. You know, it's not as stressful as people want to paint it out to be. It's a lot of fun. It's getting to meet a lot of different people, coaches, GMs from various clubs, travel around a little bit. And in fact, as we speak this morning, he's in New Orleans visiting with the New Orleans Saints. So it's been a lot of fun.
Oh, I would imagine, meeting tons of NFL teams, that'd be a great experience for anyone to have. But Coach, I want to take it back to the beginning. When Greg started off playing in the PAL, could you see he was a dominant player? I mean, did you see maybe star potential go to the NFL? Was it easy to tell that early on?
Well, to say someone's going to reach the NFL at an early age, is certainly be just taking a wild guess. About 2% of the college athletes move on to play professional football. But as it wasn't hard to realize at an early age, that there was probably something special about Greg.
Yeah, I can imagine probably the size. He obviously has amazing size. That's one of his pluses and positives going into the NFL. That probably was easy to tell as early. But let's segue now into high school. When he was a high schooler, he was All-American, All-State. He was a top 3 finalist for National Player of the Year. Was there any time he felt a little pressure weighing on him heavily to perform, or did you ever, as a father and coach, to coach him in a certain way?
No, I don't think he felt pressure with any of that stuff. I think he just both Chris and Greg just took things in stride. I think playing here for me probably was a little pressure, being the son of the head coach. But as far as him playing and college and anticipating what's going to happen in the pros, I don't think there's any pressure at all.
Now, Greg went into college. He had a pretty good career. He was obviously went at Miami. They're a tight end producing school, putting out Bubba Franks, Jeremy Shockey, Kellen Winslow Jr. So, everyone saw when he went there after transferring from Notre Dame, it was a obvious great choice. But entering in the NFL draft as an underclassman, what went into that decision?
Well, towards the end of the season, we were contemplating it a little bit. Greg, myself, our family, and the coaches, and we said, okay, let's wait till the season ends. And the season ended. Then we had that time, about a month between the last game and the bowl, when we really started to look at it very seriously, especially due to the fact that he graduated in December, and we just thought it was time to move on. He's been in college 4 years, and I didn't see any advantage to him coming back for a 5th year.
Yeah, that's true. We could have gotten injured, hurt his chance to be as highly selected as he's projected to go. Now, Greg, drastically improved his chances and his draft stock at the NFL Combine, where he ran a great 40 time of, I believe it was 4.51 or a little less than that.
4.47.
4.47. That's amazing for a tight end. Showed great athletic ability, great vertical jump, and scouts were amazed by him. But do you think personally, as a coach, that a combine and numbers like that can prove how good a player is?
Well, the combine, it's kind of a double-edged sword. It helps people and hurts people. That's why you'll see some kids go there and, on advice of their agents, not perform. Because there's been kids that have gone to the combine that were supposed to run, 4.5 and run 4.8, and it hurts them dearly. It costs them, literally millions. But we were confident. Both Greg's agent, Drew Rosenhaus, and myself were confident, and Greg, that when he got to the combine, that he would put those type of numbers up.
Yeah, Drew Rosenhaus stated before the draft that he would be like Jeremy Shockey, amaze everyone with his athletic ability, personality, and character. And he also stated several times that he would just put up monstrous numbers like Jeremy did at the combine. Do you think comparisons to Jeremy are fair?
Well, it's certainly, I think when all said and done, Jeremy is going to go down as one of the all-time great tight ends. And it's certainly very flattering to be compared to him. I think athletically they're similar. Size-wise, they're similar. Greg may be a little taller, but similar bodies, similar, very similar characteristics physically. So yeah, that's a good analogy right there.
Yeah, Greg is definitely a very tall individual. I believe he's 6'6", 6'5", or what is he called?
6'6", about 256, 257.
One of the other positives, he got a great frame, and he can add about 15 pounds, scouts say, and not lose any quickness, which is one thing he has over other tight ends such as Zach Miller in the NFL draft.
Right, and I don't think they're going to be concerned with Greg, adding additional weight. I think, 255 or whatever he may be, I think that's pretty much, from the NFL people I spoke to, that's pretty much where they would like to see him. And what they really were most impressed with and wanted to see was the breakaway speed. And, 255, I don't think he needs to, be 265 or 270. When you get those tight ends that are 270 and above, they're usually there just to block.
Yeah, those.
And there's a lot of those.
Daniel Graham type blockers. Coach, I've seen him getting selected in mock drafts as high as number 14 to the Carolina Panthers, to a coach that you may know a little familiarly. John Fox used to live here in Wayne. Would you like to see Greg go to any particular team?
Well, I do know Coach Fox. You know, a little bit from living in town and things of that nature. We've met several times and talked and chatted. But, you know, you can't get too wrapped up in who takes you, because it's one thing, you know, for the first time in his career, something he has no control over. Like, it was time to go to college, you know, he was going to pick the college. When it was time to transfer, he was going to pick the college. Now it's the other way. So, you know, you sit there and you've done your best, you prepared yourself the best that you can, and now it's out of your hands.
Well, all Wayne will be rooting for him on draft day, but where will you guys be on draft day?
We'll be with Drew Rosenhaus and Greg at Miami.
Okay, Coach. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. All Wayne wishes Greg the best of luck, as I said. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back with more 30-minute drill right after this.
This machine never works. Oh, hi. When there's breaking news, Mr. Hookshot calls the 30-minute drill team immediately. Now, can I get my drink?
30-minute drill team, assemble.
We're open, guys.
Move. Let's pull.
It's the segment Aaron Ploshnick along with my guest Jason Oliphant. We're both happy to be here to serve your needs. We're going to talk about playoff basketball today, the NBA playoffs. You know, it's always a good time when the NBA playoffs come around. You know, school year is almost ending, summer's approaching, and you get some nice basketball going into the summer. So, in the East, we have the Pistons, the number 1 seed, Bulls 2, Cavs 3, Raptors 4, Heat 5, Wizards 6, Nets 7, and Magic 8, which sets up matchups as follows. Pistons versus Magic, Bulls versus Nets, Cavs versus Wiz, and Raptors versus Heat. Let's start with the easy-to-pick 1 to 8 matchup. Who are you taking in this matchup?
Well, I'm going to shock you here. I'm actually going to take the Magic over the Pistons. A huge upset, 8 seed over the 1 seed. The reason? Because of Dwight Howard. This player is on a rampage right now for the Orlando Magic, averaging 26 points in his last 5 games for them and 10 boards. And Jameer Nelson is playing well with Grant Hill. So I like the Magic over the Pistons.
You're a laughable person, Jason. I'm not even kidding. I don't know how in the world you could take an 8 seed over a 1 seed. So I'm just going to simply state Pistons. And I think my argument talks for itself. And the fact that the Pistons won the finals a couple years ago. They're still the strongest team in the East, without question. Their starting lineup is phenomenal, even without Ben Wallace. And I don't think there is any inkling of a chance that the Pistons lose this game to the Magic just because of what they've had in their future and the lack of strength in the Eastern Conference. So we're going to have the Pistons moving on in that one game. 2-7, Bulls, Nets, who you got?
Well, there's no upset here, obviously. I like the Bulls over the Nets. The reason, I like the backcourt of Kirk Heinrich and Ben Gordon. Also, the forward play of Luol Deng is great, leading the Bulls. And also, the huge acquisition over the offseason of getting the center, Ben Wallace, from their rival, the Detroit Pistons, was huge. And I think it's going to give the Bulls wonders, and they're going to prevail over the Nets and move on in the playoffs.
Now, you think the predictable pick would be the Bulls here, but I'm going to go ahead and you can laugh at me for taking the New Jersey Nets. I know it might sound surprising, but I like the Nets with this pick. I think with RJ coming back from injury, I think with Vince Carter, Jason Kidd, they've got the 3 guys. And the season series with the Bulls was pretty close. I mean, the one game I went to with my basketball team, Bulls versus Nets, Nets were down 18 points at one point in the first quarter. And they battled back that game, and they won that game. So the Nets do have a chance in this series, whatever people might say, especially Ed Tuminello, who really thinks the Nets have no chance in the series, but I'm going to go ahead and pick the Nets. So say what you want, but I'm going Nets. All right, Cavs, Wizards. You got phenom LeBron James, and you got Agent Zero, Gilbert Arenas. Who do you have?
Well, a month ago, I would pick the Wizards easily for the Cavs to prevail. But Gilbert Arenas has been out the last 3 weeks, and during that 3-week stretch, the Wizards are they lost 9 out of the last 10 games, so I don't like the Wizards. And the Cavs, LeBron James, he's just too tough for the Wizards to withstand. So this year is not the year for the Wizards. The Cavs are moving on.
You know, the Wizards look good early on in the season, and you would have thought they would have a nice chance to put up a fight against the Pistons. But I think the Cavs look like a much stronger team right now. I think LeBron James is meshing well with this team. They've got a lot of talent around them between Ilgauskas and Varejao, and they've just meshed together well this season. And I see them going a lot farther than the first round in this playoffs. So I'm going to agree with you and go with the Cavs. Now we've got the 4-5 Raptors, who won the Atlantic Division, versus the Heat, now regaining Dwayne Wade. Who do you have in this?
Well, you would have never thought before this season started that the Raptors would be in the playoffs. Head coach Sam Mitchell, my pick to win Coach of the Year, like I said on previous episodes. And I like the Raptors to prevail over the experienced Miami Heat. The reason, TJ Ford, Chris Bosh leading his team well, and I like Andrea Bargnani. If he can come back healthy in the playoffs, the Raptors could be dangerous. So I like the Raptors prevailing over last year's NBA champs, the Miami Heat.
You know, I like the Heat here simply because of the resurgence of Dwayne Wade. I mean, he was on the shelf for a while. He's coming back from injury. Needs a couple games under his belt. And I think that's going to be the difference maker in this series. I think just the presence of Dwayne Wade makes any team shake. So, with that said, Shaquille O'Neal looking pretty good in Dwayne Wade's absence, and then you just throw Dwayne Wade in the mix. And I don't think the Raptors have enough firepower to stop them. Bargnani might be back for this series. I doubt it. And we don't even know what his status is for the playoffs. But I have to take the Heat in this series. All right, so we've got, in my bracket, Pistons and Nets and Cavs and Heat. And in yours, you have Pistons and Bulls, Cavs and Raptors. So out of your matchup between the Magic and the Raptors, who is your winner?
Well, you might laugh at me here again, Aaron. I'm going to say the Orlando Magic because the reason I told you, Dwight Howard, he's just a beast on the block for the Magic, and Jameer Nelson and Grant Hill are playing well. So I like the Magic to prevail over the Pistons.
Well, I've got the opposite two teams there, and I'm going to take the team you had the Magic beaten in the first round, the Detroit Pistons, just too strong. So I've got Nets and Cavs in my next matchup, and I'm going to go with the Cleveland Cavaliers here because I think LeBron James is just too powerful for the Nets to handle. You have both Cavs. Who do you take?
Well, I would take the Cavs as well because, like you said, LeBron James is his second straight year in the playoffs, and I think he could actually lead his team to the promised land this season. And I think the Cavs can make a push in the playoffs, and LeBron James, I think, will lead his team.
Okay. Cavs, Magic, who's your Eastern Conference representative?
It's going to be the Cavs. The Magic don't have enough experience, and the Cavs, I told you, LeBron James is going to lead his team, so I like the Cavs.
Pistons, Cavs in my final, and I'm going to take the Pistons simply because they are the most dominant team in the East, without a question. LeBron James is going to follow that dominant Detroit starting lineup. All right, that's going to do it for us for this segment. We'll be back with more 30-minute drills right after this.
Welcome back to the 30-minute drill. Once again, I'm your host, Michael Botwinick, along with my guest, Dan Cohen. And today we're talking about MLB and Jackie Robinson Day. Now, Dan, a lot of players decided to wear 42 today after a idea by Ken Griffey Jr. Do you think this is a good idea to honor Jackie Robinson, or do you think that he'd be mad that the players were wearing his jersey number?
I think this is a great idea for baseball. I think that Jackie Robinson would not be mad. I think that I honestly think he'd be honored to see that all these people today are honoring what he did for baseball, breaking the color barrier, really, starting black people to get into baseball and coming out of the Negro leagues. So I think this is great for baseball. I think it's great that the baseball players are honoring such a great man like that.
Now, Mariano Rivera is the only active player to regularly wear number 42. Do you think that he deserves to wear number 42, or do you think that should be retired and he should get a new number?
I honestly think he should get a new number because I think that that number is really important, and what he did for baseball is very important, and that they retired it throughout baseball, and I think that should apply to all players. There should be no exemptions, whether you have the number or not. Regardless, Mariano Rivera is a great player, in my opinion, the best closer of all time. I don't think he would be bothered to get a new number. It wouldn't be that big a deal. I mean, so he retires. And right now the Yankees are probably going to have 2 retired 42s. I don't think it would be that big a deal if he just changed his number and had something else. I think that he should be honored to change his number and let Jackie Robinson stay alone in the spotlight.
Now, a lot of things has been done this past week, and some people are saying that a lot of the more influential African American players in today's game, such as Ken Griffey Jr., should be able to wear 42 always. Do you think that they should only be able to wear it one day a year?
I don't think they should be allowed to wear it whenever they want because, first of all, there would be problems in the clubhouse. If you have more than one African American player, they might want to fight over number 42. I think that retiring the number 42 throughout baseball, it's a good statement that they clearly want this number to be remembered for Jackie Robinson, and no one else should wear it. So this one special occasion where they can all wear it, I think is good. Except, in my opinion, I think this should happen every year. I don't think we should wait for some special landmark, like in this case the 60th anniversary. I think every year on the anniversary, anyone should be able to wear number 42, but just on that one day.
Now, African American numbers were really dropping this year. I mean, down to lowest as it's been since Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier. Obviously, it's a problem. What do you think can be done to fix this problem?
Well, I think that they mentioned that Peter Gammons, MLB reporter, he reported that one of the big problems is that the scouts, they're not going into the inner cities and they're not finding people. And they had an interview with Mike Cameron, and he said that it's a huge problem that they have a lot of talent in the inner cities, except the kids are being they're turning towards basketball and football and not as much as baseball, and the scouts really aren't coming to the inner cities. So I think that for African Americans to get back into baseball, the scouts are definitely going to have to go to the inner cities. They're going to definitely have to establish more little league systems in the inner cities, and it's definitely obvious that the African American players, it's gone down. There are actually, believe it or not, only 2 starting pitchers in the MLB, African American starting pitchers in the MLB, CC Sabathia and Dontrelle Willis. I mean, that's a huge problem. That's 2 out of, who knows how many.
Well, a lot of, obviously, as you mentioned before, there's a lot of African Americans in the inner cities where there's not a great amount of money. There's a lot of poverty. Do you think that that's a big problem with players? Because you only have to buy 1 basketball to play 10 players, but you need to buy a glove for every player, a bat, a ball. Do you think this is a problem that's leading to less African Americans in the game?
It could be considered a problem, but I don't think the money is as big a problem because it doesn't seem that the Spanish population, the Latin population have any problem coming to the major leagues. And I think that those Latin players coming out of third world countries, I think that they're probably in more poverty than the inner city people. And yet they're playing with, they're not playing with the greatest equipment ever. They're playing with sticks and whatnot, but they're still playing their hearts out. They're not turning to like football or basketball. So I don't think the money is the problem. I think it's the heart for the game. They need to establish more of a passion for baseball in these inner cities, not just the money.
Now, while the African American numbers are dropping, the Hispanic and Asian numbers are both rising. Do you think that eventually the league will become almost all European and Asian and almost not American?
Well, I don't think that it's ever going to come to that, but at the pace it's going right now, there's a definite chance that the African American population could possibly be extinct from baseball because, as we know, the Hispanic players, they're getting better and they're just going to keep rising. Over far in the Far East, in Japan and China and Taiwan, they have some very talented players there who aren't coming over in huge numbers, but they might be coming over a lot more soon. And then I think that the Americans, the Caucasian American population, I think Little League is, something that's a part of America's pastime. I don't think that's ever going to go away, and I think that there's always going to be a significant American Caucasian population in baseball, so I don't think that's going to be an issue.
Now, obviously, Jackie Robinson was a very influential player in not only a player, but in all aspects of life for the African Americans. What do you think he could do if he was still alive now? What do you think he would be able to do to boost the African American interest in baseball?
I think pretty much his goal, I think he would have to, go into the inner cities and have, discussions with, programs in the inner cities or where there's high African American populations. And, without him, he can't really talk to these people. And I think that that's a big problem. I think if he was alive, he'd be able to go into these inner cities and he could talk to kids and he could show them, the things that he did and the things that they could do if they would follow in his footsteps. So I think he would have a big influence, but I also think that without him, there's a big influence that people are, even though he's dead, I think that because he's dead, his stature is even higher. I think he's treasured and honored even more than when he was alive.
Now, one last question, Dan.
Do you think that the African American population base will ever go up?
I think it will end up going up because baseball it's a sport that a lot of people can fall in love with. It's a very popular sport. I think that the baseball and football they kind of take over in those areas, but I think that the problem has been isolated, and I think that it's going to start to be fixed.
Thank you, Dan. We'll be back with more 30-minute drill right after this. Sometimes hosting the 30-minute drill let the fame get to their head.
Where's Dan? I don't know, man. Ever since he got the lead anchor job, he hasn't been on time.
Starting at host, standing at 5'5", 140 pounds, the offspring of Karen and Scott, Daniel Adam Cohen.
Sometimes it even gets disturbing to the other anchors. Welcome back to the 30-minute drill. Once again, I'm your host, Michael Botwinick, along with my guest, Dan Cohen. And today we're going to be talking about the NHL playoffs. Now, Dan, a lot of great teams come out of the East, but what team do you think will make it to the Stanley Cup and represent the East?
I like the number 1 seed, the Buffalo Sabres. I know, they're the 1 seed, so you can call me a front runner or whatever, but I watched them play. I've watched some of Game 1, some of Game 2, and I watched a lot of Game 3, and the Buffalo Sabres are a quality team. I think they have one of the greatest offense right now in hockey. They have a hot goalie in Ryan Miller, and the defense it's not as strong as some of the other defenses, but they have a quick defense. They have a offensive power defense, and that's why they're so good on the power play and everything. So I think the Buffalo Sabres are definitely the best team in the Eastern Conference.
Now, obviously, both of the hometown teams, the Devils and the Rangers and the Islanders, all in the Eastern playoffs. Which team do you think will advance the farthest?
I actually think, I'm a Rangers fan, but I think it's going to be the Rangers, because I've been watching some of the playoffs. The Islanders, they just got in. For them, it was really a miracle that they even got in the playoffs. They had that shootout game that they won against the Devils, the last regular season game of the season, and they won that game to get into the playoffs, and that was only because Toronto beat Montreal coming down from a 2-goal lead to basically cancel each other out and throw them both out of the playoff picture. So the Islanders just squeaked by, and the goaltending for them, it's been a little shaky since Ricky DiPietro, he had the concussion and whatever, so he's just coming back, so he's obviously not as fresh as he can be. The Devils, they're a team that, you can never count them out of the playoffs. Even if it doesn't look like they have good players, they're a team that they just seem to always pull it out in the playoffs. They have the guys that can do it. Martin Brodeur is a clutch goalie. Even though he hasn't been playing amazing this playoff so far, he's been giving up 3 or 4 goals a game, which is uncharacteristic of him. So the Rangers right now, they're the hot team. They were one of the hottest teams in the NHL coming down the stretch of the regular season. Henrik Lundqvist is on fire, and I think the Rangers will go the farthest.
Now, switching other side of the country, the Western Conference, which team do you think will come out of that division?
I like the Detroit Red Wings. They are a really special team. I think they have probably the best offense in the entire NHL. Pavel Datsyuk, Zetterberg, these are 2 guys that they're young. They're just scoring machines. Then, of course, the Red Wings, they always have great leadership. They have a great veteran goalie in Dominik Hasek. They have their captain, Lidstrom, a great offensive and defensive defenseman. They also have Matthew Schneider on the defense. So the Detroit Red Wings, they're just a high-powered team, and I think they'll go very far.
Now, you've already mentioned a few goalies, but which goalie do you think is the most vital for his team's success in the playoffs?
I have to go right now with Henrik Lundqvist on the New York Rangers. What he's done for the Rangers so far in the playoffs is just incredible. He's single-handedly kept them in some games coming down the stretch of the regular season, and so far in the 2 games he's played in the playoffs, he's really kept that team in the run. He's giving up 1 or 2 goals a game, which is incredible since the amount of shots he's facing and the caliber of the shots he's facing. The Atlanta Thrashers, they have some snipers like Ilya Kovalchuk and Marian Hossa, his brother Marcin Hossa, on the Rangers. So they have some snipers that can really score, and Henrik Lundqvist has been really stopping them.
Now, switching to the other side of the rink, offensive players, a lot of young stars such as Gilbert Brule and Sidney Crosby. Which offensive player do you think will help their team the most in the playoffs?
I'm going to go with Vinny Lecavalier on the Tampa Bay Lightning. He already has 4 goals in the playoffs so far, which is the most. He's tied with what's his name, Zach Parise. But I think Lecavalier, he's a guy that he led the NHL regular season in goals. He's a great scorer. He's a natural scorer. He scored one on Mario Brodeur in Game 3 from a really sharp angle, which shows that he's got a a great shot because Marty Brodeur doesn't let in goals easy. So Vincent Lecavalier, he's going to be that offense. Tampa Bay Lightning, they have a great offense. They also have Martin St. Louis and Vinny Prospal. But I'm going to look Vincent Lecavalier. He's the offensive mastermind there, and he's got one of the best shots in the entire NHL.
Well, another star offensive player and a very young upcoming star, Thomas Vanek. He had a great goal in Game 3, but do you think it should have counted?
In my opinion, they should not. I don't think they should have counted this goal. It was very close. It was actually, I think for Islanders fans, the thing they have to be most angry about is that it was almost a carbon copy of what happened to them against the Rangers towards the end of the regular season. And just for anyone that doesn't know, it was towards the end of the game, the Islanders were about to tie it. And there was a situation where, the replay, you couldn't exactly tell. Originally, the referee said no goal. The goal judge said no goal, and they reviewed it, and there was nothing conclusive. The same thing happened in Game 3. The referee said no goal. The goal judge did not put the light on, except this time when they reviewed it, even though the reviews didn't seem like they showed anything conclusive, somehow they found a look that they felt was conclusive enough, and they counted it as a goal, and this really hurt the Islanders. So I don't think, in my opinion, this should not have counted as a goal. Apparently, TSN, the Canadian feed, apparently they enhanced it and slowed it down so they allegedly could see the puck over the line. I saw this look. I don't think it was that conclusive. I personally would not have given the goal to Thomas Vanek, especially after the referee and the goal judge both said no goal.
Now, some teams that are rebuilding, such as the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Colorado Blue Jackets, they have some very young...
Columbus Blue Jackets.
Columbus Blue Jackets, of course.
I know you love that team.
Yes, I do. I like them. They have some great talent, such as Gilbert Brule and Nikolai Zedrov. And the Pittsburgh Penguins have Malkin and Crosby and Whitney. Which team do you think eventually will be a better team in the NHL?
I have to go with the Pittsburgh Penguins. I mean, people thought that this year was going to be a rebuilding year, and they ended up being incredible. They're one of the top teams in the playoffs right now. They have since right before the lock year, they started to go downhill. They got a lot of draft picks. They built up their farm system, and now they have these guys up in the NHL, and they're starting to really shine. Sidney Crosby, obviously we all know, is a great player, the #1 overall pick, the lottery pick. They also have Evgeny Malkin, who you can say stole from Russia. Hopefully they won't grab him back. He's another star. They also have Ryan Whitney, a young defenseman who's an offensive-minded defenseman. He scores a lot of goals. Then they have one of the Stahls, the Stahl dynasty is now rising in the NHL. Jordan Stahl, he has a couple of shorthanded goals this year and some even-strength goals. He's been a very good player for them, does a lot of penalty killing. And then, of course, they have a young goaltender, Marc-Andre Fleury. And when you have a young goaltender who you can rely on, he can be with you guys for the future. So I think the Pittsburgh Penguins are going to be a dynasty now.
Now, before we go, Dan, who is your pick to win the Stanley Cup this year?
I'm going to go with the Buffalo Sabres. I said it before. They are incredible. I've watched them. They're the team to beat.
Thank you, Dan. And we'll be back in more 30-minute drill next week.
Hello, welcome to the 30-minute drill. I'm your host of the segment, Aaron Ploshnick.
Jake Silverman.
And Matt Weinstein.
Dan Cohen.
Host Michael Botwinick.
He hasn't pitched a game since 2005.
I don't think they're going to go very far.
He is the best quarterback. His stats have proven it.
I think Florida can definitely make a push.
Just playing lights out for 20 minutes.
An unbelievable player. He's not even 20 years old.
Big offensive numbers for him.
Doing great in spring training.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 30-minute drill. I'm your host of the segment, Aaron Ploshnick, along with my guest, Jason Olephant. And today's topic is the NFL Draft. The NFL Draft was held last Saturday and Sunday, and there were a couple interesting picks, a couple no-brainers, a couple surprises. Everything varied, but this was the longest draft, first round, that's ever been held at 6 hours and 30 minutes. So we're just going to start at the top. Who was your draft winner this year?
Well, Aaron, my draft winner has to be the Cleveland Browns, getting the franchise quarterback that they needed the most, Brady Quinn. He was questioned for not winning the big game in college, but he has the intangibles to be a premier player in the NFL, has great mechanics, and he can find his wide receivers downfield, has great field vision. So Brady Quinn, a great quarterback pickup for the Cleveland Browns, and also getting offensive tackle Joe Thomas from Wisconsin. He's going to help that O-line tremendously and give great pass protection for Brady Quinn. So Aaron, definitely not a shocker here. Cleveland definitely had the best draft.
Well, I think, yeah, Joe Thomas was a good pick to protect Brady Quinn because we all didn't know that Cleveland was going to trade up and get Brady Quinn, but we'll talk about that later. But I would have to say San Francisco probably had the best draft of anybody. They picked the needs that they needed to fill on that team just to make that defense even more stifling than it was last year, because they gave up the most points in the NFL last year, which was mentioned during the draft coverage. So to fix that, they got Patrick Willis, the inside linebacker from Ole Miss, very highly touted pick and a good value pick for San Francisco. And then they traded up with the New England Patriots' other pick to pick up Joe Staley on that offensive line to help protect Alex Smith more, because the problem was with the pass attack with San Francisco last year. So to get Joe Staley on that line to help protect him really helped San Francisco. Now, on the flip side from winners, we have the losers of the draft. So, Jason, who was your loser?
Well, my loser on draft day had to be the Arizona Cardinals. They had the 5th pick overall, and they chose to take offensive tackle Levy Brown. They didn't take Adrian Peterson, who I considered the best running back in this draft, and I thought Arizona should have taken him because Edgerrin James is aging, and even though that offensive line didn't do too well to protect Matt Leinart last year, and the running game wasn't producing a lot of yards with Edgerrin James, I think they should have took Adrian Peterson. He ran a 4.3 in the 40, and he can catch the ball in the backfield. So, Aaron, I don't know why they didn't take Adrian Peterson with the 5th pick overall.
Well, Arizona Cardinals would probably be a good pick for worse. But you can't forget, even though I'm not going to take this into account, Seattle did not have a first-round pick this year because they traded with Deion Branch. So besides Seattle, I have to say Miami had the worst. I mean, they had pick number 9. Brady Quinn had fallen all the way down the draft board to number 9. He's right there for them to pick, and boom, they go ahead and pick Ted Ginn Jr. out of nowhere. Ted Ginn Jr. was rated 15th on Mel Kiper's draft board. There was no way that Ted Ginn Jr. was going to go that high, and Miami made a really big mistake by taking Ted Ginn Jr. there. So I would have to say they're a loser. And then another loser that I have, almost tied with Miami, would be San Diego. You almost look at the pick they had at 30, which was Craig Davis, a wide receiver, and you have to go, what? Where did they come up with that pick? So many good receivers left in the draft. They still had Sidney Rice on the board, Steve Smith from USC, and they go and take Craig Davis because of his speed. But I have to say Miami and San Diego for me. What do you think, Jeff?
Don't forget, Dwayne Jarrett was also on the board. Fell to Carolina with the 45th pick in the 2nd round. Many insiders considered him a sure first-round pick. And also, I can understand kind of a little bit why San Diego decided to take Craig Davis with the 30th pick overall. Did run a 4.3 in the combine, but I don't know. Tough pick there, so I'll have to agree with you there.
All right, we're going to move on to our shocker pick. I think it's pretty obvious what mine is, so I'll start first. Ted Ginn Jr. from Miami. There was no way he should have gone 9. He was not the best player at that position. Brady Quinn should have been taken there. So I'm just going to go out there and say Miami had the biggest shocker. How about you, Jeff?
Well, my shocker had to be the New York Jets. They had the first-round pick originally at 25 and then traded it to get the 14th pick, and they took cornerback Darrelle Revis, who in my mind cannot be a premier player in this league. They passed up on Brady Quinn, who I think should have went to the Jets. You trade all the way up from 25 to 14, and they have Chad Pennington, who, in my mind, I don't think he can last in this league. He's too injury prone. They should have took Quinn, would have been the franchise quarterback, would have loved it in New York. So I don't know. I think the Jets should have took Brady Quinn in my mind. I know you might disagree, Aaron, but
I think what you're saying is honestly laughable. That is the worst thing I've ever heard as far as draft picks. So, just to correct what you're trying to say, I think Darrelle Revis was probably a genius pick at that point. He was one of the highest rated cornerbacks in the draft. They traded up from 25, only gave away 2 picks to get Darrelle Revis, who was the player they eyed the entire time. Brady Quinn would not be a fit in New York at all, considering last year they drafted Kellen Clemens, who is obviously the future to the Jets franchise. So I can't see Brady Quinn being a pick there. But we're going to move on to who we feel was the biggest trade of the draft. And I'll let you go first, since you're obviously the least experienced in draft knowledge.
Well, Aaron, this is an easy one right here. Randy Moss going to New England for a 4th-round pick going to Oakland in the trade. But Randy Moss supposedly ran a 4.3 the other day. It said on ESPN when he was working out just for fun, wanted to run a 40, had one of his friends time. It came up on 4.3, and he said, quote, "The old Randy Moss is back." And with Tom Brady throwing the ball to him, I wouldn't be surprised if the old Randy was back.
Congratulations, you got one right. Randy Moss is definitely the best trade in this draft. New England only gave up a 4th rounder to get Randy Moss, who could become the franchise wide receiver for that organization. But since that was what I felt the obvious one on the board, we should talk about a different trade, which would have to be San Francisco trading with New England to pull up to get Joe Staley to protect Alex Smith, which I also felt was a great trade. All right, that's going to do it for this segment. We'll be back with more draft talk right after this.
Carlton, Marcin. Senior. Running back.
At the 5, touchdown.
Number 25.
35-yard by Marcin.
The drive for 5 begins September 7th, 2007. Be there.
Dan Seco. Senior. Running back. Number 20.
That's blocked. 20, 15, makes a great kick. He's got room, he's at the 5.
The drive for 5 begins September 7th, 2007. Be there.
Hello, welcome back to the 30-minute drill. Aaron Ploshnick once again, along with my co-host, Jason Oliphant. We're going to dig even deeper into the draft. We're going to talk about the riskiest picks, the steals, Jason's Giants, my Titans, and of course, our hometown boy, Greg Olsen. So let's get it started. Who was your most risky pick in the draft?
Well, my risky pick has to be the number 1 pick overall to the Oakland Raiders, Jamarcus Russell. He's 6'5", has a cannon for an arm, but this is a situation, Aaron, where he could either be a bust or a gem in the NFL. He doesn't have many wide receivers to throw it to since Randy Moss was just traded to New England for a 4th-round pick. So it's going to be a tough first year for Jamarcus Russell, and it's going to be a tough situation for him in Oakland with that head coach there. So it's going to be tough for Jamarcus Russell.
Yeah, Lane Kiffin's really going to work Jamarcus Russell. I think it could be a problem for him, but I don't think it was the most riskiest pick in the draft. I think the riskiest pick belonged to the Buffalo Bills at number 12, taking Marshawn Lynch. Marshawn Lynch has a lot of character issues. He had some problems at Cal. He is a solid running back, definitely second to Adrian Peterson in the draft, but I just feel they could have picked a lot more value at that pick. I know Patrick Willis was a big spot on their board, and he got taken before San Francisco. But Marshawn Lynch, a little bit of a crazy character. Don't know how he's going to shoot off in the NFL. Jay, you have a comment?
Yeah, Marshawn Lynch actually reminds me a little bit of Ricky Williams back in the day when he was drafted by Miami and he was going there. But also, a big thing with Marshawn Lynch is that he was discovered for marijuana use, and that could be big. And I don't know, it was a risky pick for Buffalo, definitely. So I have to agree with you there with Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah, there were other players that were smoking marijuana at the NFL Combine besides Marshawn Lynch, which included the 4th pick, Gaines Adams, and the 5th pick, Levi Brown. But we will move on. Who was your steal in the draft?
Well, my steal, Aaron, has to be Anthony Gonzalez, wide receiver from Ohio State, drafted with the last pick in the 1st round by the Super Bowl champions, the Indianapolis Colts. This is a great threat downfield for Peyton Manning to throw to, has blazing speed, caught for over 1,000 yards with Ohio State with that quarterback Troy Smith there, who's drafted in the 5th round. But that's a great steal overall, and I think Anthony Gonzalez will produce wonders and will be a gem for the Indianapolis Colts down the road.
And not surprisingly, I'm going to have to go 1 pick above you and take our hometown boy, Mr. Greg Olsen, tight end out of Miami. I think the fact that he fell from a projected spot at 14 to Carolina all the way to number 31 to Chicago really helped out their team. It was a need position because Desmond Clark is getting pretty old. It was the perfect pick in that situation. Olsen has soft hands, he's fast, he can run down the field, he's almost always an open target, and he's just a big, strong guy. So I just feel, as far as value picks, it was definitely a great pick.
Yeah, talking about fast, Greg Olsen ran a 4.5 40. That's sick for a man his size. It's 6'6", 255. So for Greg Olsen to run that speed, he's going to be great, I think, for the Chicago Bears as well. So I have to agree with you there as well, Aaron.
All right, I'm going to let you talk about your favorite team now. The Giants, they picked Aaron Ross with the 20th pick in the draft, cornerback out of Texas. What do you think about that pick?
Well, I actually like that pick because Giants definitely needed a corner with Sam Madison aging and a lot of injuries that have plagued them down the stretch in recent seasons. Getting Aaron Ross from Texas is a huge pick, had great seasons with the Longhorns, and also Steve Smith, great 2nd-round pick, was a great wide receiver for USC. So I like him with Sonoris Moss now, with getting younger for the Giants wide receiver core. I like the Giants to have a great season, and I like these 2 draft picks.
Yeah, I think Steve Smith and Aaron Ross are some really smart draft picks for the Giants. Now, a team with 1 pick above the Giants was my favorite team, the Tennessee Titans. And although it was a little surprising that they went and picked Michael Griffin, the safety out of Texas, when they were thought to pick Ted Ginn Jr. Because Ginn Jr. went earlier, I just think it was the better pick to take Michael Griffin. He's a hard-hitting safety. He's very good in coverage. He led the Big Ten in interceptions 2 years ago, and he practiced against a couple really good receivers at Texas, including Limas Swede, who still is at Texas right now. So I think very good pick for the Titans as far as value is concerned. We're going to move on to Greg Olsen right now, pick 31 at the Bears. What do you think of this pick for the Bears?
Well, I think this is a great pick overall. The combine was great for Greg Olsen. It produced him well. Vertical leap was tremendous. Like we said earlier with the 40-yard dash, ran a 4.5 time. So Greg Olsen, I think he's going to have a great NFL career. Reminds me a lot of Jeremy Shockey with the Giants. So I like Greg Olsen to produce well and have great numbers for the Chicago Bears. Great target for Rex Grossman downfield.
Yeah, I really think that that Rex Grossman gained himself a very nice option in this draft with the Bears drafting Greg Olsen. He's a solid player. He showed that he was a solid player in Miami. He was built up from the Wayne Hills tradition under his father, Chris Olsen, one of the most highly touted players coming out of college. He was rated on Max Preps as the third best player coming out and the best at his position. Was the Gatorade State Player of the Year. Went to Miami after transferring from Notre Dame. Had a pretty successful career at Miami with 6 touchdowns. And now he's just going to translate that to the NFL. And I just think, as far as value picks go, he was probably one of the best picks in the round.
Yeah, the best thing for Greg Olsen definitely has to be his size. Like we said, 6'6", 255, and he has the speed that many of the other tight ends compared to him in this draft didn't have. So that's why Greg was drafted higher than him. And like I said, Rex Grossman, Greg Olsen, he's going to be his new favorite wide receiver down in Chicago with Lovie Smith.
That's going to do it for me and Jason with the draft. We'll be back with more 30-Minute Drill right after this.
Mike Giampapa. Senior. Quarterback. Number 1. The Drive for 5 begins September 7th, 2007. Be there.
Jeremiah Kale. Senior. QB.
Play action. Goes up to Mike. Hale's going to take it himself on a few plays.
Number 2.
Down. Pass it down to the left. He's up the sides at the 30, 35, 40.
The Drive for 5 begins September 7th, 2007. Be there.
Welcome back to 30-Minute Drill. Once again, I'm your host, Michael Botwinick, along with my guests, Dan Cohen and Travis Volpe. And today we're going to have our NFL draft wrap-up. Now, Dan, a lot of controversy in the first pick. Raiders had a little trouble deciding if they were going to take Jamarcus Russell, Calvin Johnson, or Brady Quinn. Do you think that they made the right decision taking Jamarcus Russell?
I think this is definitely the right decision for the Raiders because I got to think that they're thinking, which of these guys can we take that's going to help us in the long run? In 5 years, which of these guys is going to still be a difference maker for us? I think Jamarcus Russell's the right choice. He's a game-changing quarterback. Only guys like him come around once every few years. He's got a very strong arm, and he's a big guy. He's very tough to take down. So I think this was definitely the right choice for the Raiders.
Dan, I'm going to have to agree with you there because Jamarcus Russell, he's a game changer, and he can make big plays. Brady Quinn, you know what, he's a good player, but he's been struggling in big games like the last year's championship game when he lost that game, and Jamarcus Russell really proved himself in that game.
Now, Brady Quinn was obviously the story of this draft. What do you think is the reason that he fell from the top 5 to number 22 overall?
Well, I think the reason is because the Cleveland Browns decided that at the number 3 pick, they felt the most valuable player for them would be offensive tackle Joe Thomas, and that's what they decided to do. And obviously, if no other team, wants a quarterback, then he's going to drop as far as he can to a team will finally want a quarterback. The Browns thought they were able to trade up. They did. They got Quinn later on. And the reason he dropped is because if he wasn't getting picked by the Raiders or the Browns as the 3rd pick, if nobody else wanted a quarterback, he'd have to wait till a team did.
Yeah, that's definitely true because a lot of teams are set at quarterback, and the only other team that really would have thought of taking a quarterback would be the Dolphins, but they obviously didn't take him. But the Browns were lucky to get him at number 22. That was a big steal for them, and I think it's going to really help getting both him and Joe Thomas.
Now, speaking of the Dolphins, many people thought that they would take Brady Quinn. They decided to go with Ted Ginn. This is a lot of people thought this is the biggest surprise of the draft. What do you guys think was the biggest surprise?
I think that actually, I'm going to move to the New York Jets. They traded up, and a lot of people anticipated that this trade up was probably in order to, grab a cornerback and kind of protect the cornerbacks from going to their rival New England Patriots. I'm just surprised that they chose Darrelle Revis opposed to Leon Hall. A lot of people had Leon Hall on their boards ahead of Darrelle Revis. They decided that Darrelle Revis would be the best for their team. Leon Hall proved that throughout his college season. He choked in the big game. USC walked all over him. Ohio State walked all over him. So that's probably the reason why.
Yeah, my biggest surprise is going to be Ted Ginn Jr. going to Miami because, nobody's going to suspect to take a wide receiver, especially of him. They were saying he would go maybe second and third round, but taking him first round at the number 9 pick overall, that was huge. Also, he's still recovering from his foot injury. It's been 4 months since he since he sprained it in that championship game, and he still hasn't recovered. He's only about 80%, so the Dolphins taking him, that's a big chance they're going to take.
Now, the Detroit Lions took Calvin Johnson as number 2 overall pick. This is the 4th year out of the last 5 years that they've taken a wide receiver in the first round. He's obviously one of the top players in the draft, but a lot of people were second-guessing this pick because of their lack of success with the wide receivers. Do you think that Matt Millen and the Detroit Lions made the right pick?
I think they did make the right pick here. The Detroit Lions, they have so many holes in their team, and there's no one pick that's going to turn that around, just like the kind of the situation with the Houston Texans last year. And I think that Calvin Johnson he's honestly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He's probably the best. He might be the best athlete in the draft. He's tall. He's got great hands. He's got blazing speed. He has the opportunity to become the best wide receiver in the NFL for a long time and maybe break records and possibly go into the Hall of Fame. So this is the kind of player that you just couldn't pass up. And I know they have taken wide receivers in the past and their luck hasn't been great with them, but I think this is the kind of pick that they just had to make.
Yeah, I think 4 out of 5 years is just a coincidence because every time they made that pick, it was the best pick for their team, the best player available on the spot. But getting Calvin Johnson at the number 2 spot, they couldn't pass on him because he was one of the best players in the draft. And if they couldn't watch him go to another team and then have something happen, and they ended up getting a quarterback, which wouldn't really help them out. So Calvin Johnson at the number 2 spot was big for them.
Now Randy Moss was traded to the New England Patriots for a 4th round pick. They had a very active offseason. They got Dante Stallworth and Odelius Thomas. Not much like them, the Patriots. They usually go with low-budget free agents. Do you think this is a good pickup for the New England Patriots to get Randy Moss?
I think honestly this is a steal for the New England Patriots. I'm kind of confused about the trade. It doesn't appear to be very even for the Raiders. A 4th round pick for Randy Moss, who's although he has been very unsuccessful in the past 2 years, who knows what would happen if he was given the opportunity to run routes behind Jamarcus Russell. But I definitely think the New England Patriots got a steal here. They went from having a poor wide receiving core to a good one now.
Yeah, getting Randy Moss to the Patriots is a big steal. I mean, a fourth round pick for him. In the hundreds, they got him. So Randy Moss was one of the best players in the draft in 1998 when he came into the league. Getting him for a Patriots, he's got some attitude problems, but if any team could straighten that out, it's going to be the Patriots.
Now, the Wayne Hills alumni, Greg Olsen, he was expected to go in the middle of the 4th round, slipped a little bit to the Chicago Bears. But do you think that Chicago Bears is a good fit for his type of game?
I do think that if I were him, I'd be very happy. Although maybe he thought that he was going to get picked earlier in the 1st round, he still got picked in the 1st round. He can say he got picked in the 1st round, and now he's going to a team instead of possibly going to a team that might not have the chance of being very successful this year. He's going to a team that he knows has the opportunity to go back to the Super Bowl again this year. He's going to be on a very high-powered offense, and I think that he'll do very well there. He's a great. He may not be the best blocking tight end, but he's a very good catching tight end. He's probably be able to play some slot in there, and I think he'll really help that Bears offense.
Yeah, Chicago is a very good fit for him. Playing with Rex Grossman, he hasn't really proven himself throwing to wide receivers. People say he's not tall enough, but having a big tight end in the middle there with Greg Olsen, that's probably going to be his main target throughout the year. So being with that, also making the Super Bowl last year, he's going to have a good chance at winning.
Thank you, Dan and Travis. I'll be back with more 30-minute drill right after this.
Dan DeSico, senior. Running back. Number 20.
That's blocked. 20, 15. That's a great team. He's got room. He's at the 5.
The drive for 5 begins September 7th, 2007. Be there.
machine never works. Oh, hi. When there's breaking news, Mr. Hookstraight calls the 30-minute drill team immediately. Now, can I get my drink?
30-minute drill team, assemble.
Come on, guys.
Move. Let's pull. Welcome back to the 30-minute drill. Once again, I'm your host, Michael Botwinick, along with my guest, Dan Cohen. And we have a special guest today, David Suntop. Now, guys, NFL draft just happened this weekend. We were talking about before. Joe Thomas, the number 3 overall pick to the Cleveland Browns, he was not even at the draft, not even watching the draft. He actually went fishing with his father. If you were getting drafted, would you go fishing or would you stay at home to watch the draft?
You know, if I knew I was going to be a top 5 pick, I'd probably go to the draft and I'd want to be there to go walk up, shake hands with the commissioner, hold up my jersey and hat proud. But I do think that it's a bold move by him to go fishing with his dad. I respect it. You know, he becomes an NFL player. He might not have these opportunities to go fishing with his dad much because he might be a big famous guy and not have all these chances to do that. So I totally think that it's good that he did it. But personally, me, I would like to be the draft.
Well, basically, if you're a top 5 pick, I would go to the draft because it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. You work so hard since you're 5 years old playing football, going to all those practices, all the combines, and now you finally get to that point. But it's very stressful to be in that green room because you could see, if you saw what happened to Brady Quinn, who thought he could go 3rd to the Browns, and he slipped at number 22 when Cleveland traded to get him. It's very nerve-wracking. It can be very embarrassing if you slip down. But, hey, give Joe Thomas credit. He did something he's passionate about, and he may not have too many more times to do something like this with his father because he's going to be so busy with football.
Now, the day 2 is often looked at as just a blind shoot in the wind, and the round 1 is always looked at as the sure thing and the round that really matters. But day 2 always produces a lot of great players, such as Tom Brady is the prime example. Which player do you think will turn out to be this year's Tom Brady?
Well, I'm going to possibly go with, Andre Allison. He's a flat, he playing in college at East Carolina. He had there's word on the street is flashy wide receiver, kind of wants the ball a lot. But I think that once he gets to the NFL, his mentality is going to have to change. Those NFL coaches, Coach Childress, he's not going to put up with that. He's going to probably turn into a really good wide receiver, and I think that he definitely has the opportunity to become an all-star wide receiver.
Well, Mr. Allison could follow in the footsteps of Marcus Colston, who was a 7th-round pick of the Saints last year. But Allison, the Vikings really need a wide receiver because they drafted Troy Williamson 2 years ago, number 7 pick overall, and he's been a bust. Tavarius Jackson, he's a very young quarterback. He needs someone to throw to. And I'll tell you this, if the Vikings have no passing attack, these defenses will put 8 and 9 guys up in the box and stop Adrian Peterson.
Now, New York Giants, the home team, my favorite team, Dan's favorite team, Dave's favorite team. They made a great first-round selection, in my opinion, with Aaron Ross. But what do you think about the rest of their draft?
I think this was a very good draft for the New York Giants. They had a few holes that they had to fill. Definitely the secondary was an issue to address. Obviously, the secondary for the Giants, known this past year for kind of being the Swiss cheese defense, passes being thrown right through them all the time. They also lost Luke Pettigrew, so that's a position they had to address at offensive tackle. And also they lost a few linebackers in LeVar Arrington and Carlos Emmons. They had to address that position. I think that Aaron Ross was a very good selection in the first round because they needed a cornerback. Last time they drafted a cornerback high up, Corey Webster, really didn't pan out, so they're hoping that Ross can. I think the rest of the draft was also pretty good for the Giants. I think that one of the sleeper selections they made was getting Boss, the tight end. He's a tall tight end. They say he's got very good hands. This could complement the Giants' offense after we know they lost their consistent backup tight end, Visanthe Shenko. So I think this can really help the Giants.
Well, I think the Giants had a decent draft. I mean, Aaron Ross, they definitely needed a cornerback. He was the top cornerback in the nation. But it has to worry you guys that in the past, Will Allen, Will Peterson, and Corey Webster all did not pan out for the Giants. So the Giants have not been the best at drafting in the secondary. But Steve Smith, he was a great wide receiver at USC, great route runner. He could really get open because Eli Manning really needs another wide receiver because once Toomer got hurt, the Giants' offense was terrible, especially in red zone situations. And Toomer is not going to come back at 100% before the season, so they needed someone else. Jay Alford, he's a great defensive tackle out of Penn State. He's my sleeper in this draft, especially for the Giants, because he did so well against these big offensive line from the Big Ten. And Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator, likes to use the three-man rotation. My only negatives for the Giants is they didn't get a left tackle to replace Luke Pettigrew because once Pettigrew went down, the Giants' offensive line was awful.
Now, Giants obviously did not really address their linebacker need much in the draft. But right after the draft, Jerry Reese, general manager of the Giants, came out and said that they were planning to move Matthias Kiwanuka to linebacker. Do you think that this would be a good move for Matthias Kiwanuka's career or a bad move?
I think if it pans out, it would always be a very good move. I think it's a reasonable choice. Matthias Kiwanuka proved last year that he's a very, very quick defensive end, but he also proved that he's really only, he proved last year